Welcome everyone to the State of Mind Mental, a Black Man's Point of View, hosted by Mogul TV, one of the hottest up and coming streaming platforms out there right now. And I'm not just saying that because I am actually on Greenwood, but it is definitely hot. You guys definitely take a look at Mogul TV when you get a chance after this. But welcome, you guys. We're going to talk about a couple of topics. We have some lovely speakers for you guys. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Knowles, and he will definitely be here enlightening us with the knowledge that he has gained and, portrayed for the rest of us throughout his life. So I want to start by, I'm allowing a couple more people to come in. But while we are getting started, I want to go ahead and have our panelists introduce themselves one by one, kind of tell us what you do, and then tell us kind of where you're from, and then basically why you're here and why you're excited to be talking about this. I will definitely start with, let's go with Imani Kaliid.
Mars, I just
Yes,
sent you a
ma'am.
message. I just sent you a message. Please check your message for me.
I got you.
We may need to continue. We may need to pause for a second.
Okay, you can go ahead and pause so I can find this message. Welcome back, people. I'm sorry for the wait. We are just figuring out some technical difficulties with some of the speakers. They have to go ahead and register as their speakers so that they can be brought to you as speakers on this platform. After 2020, to us. So, well, that's okay. I love this platform and we'll make it work. We'll get you guys ready. But for everybody that is here while we are waiting on them, I will be you guys' entertainment. So I'm not going to sing or anything like that. But what I do want to do with you guys is some meditation. So for anybody that is actually not wanting to do the meditation, that's okay. But it's just a second to basically a moment of silence for yourself. Not a bad thing. It's a healthy coping skill, something that I've been, implementing to my youth in my business as a neurospace guy. I just want to let you guys know that I work with the youth for empowerment and I work to educate them about their mental health. So some of the stuff that we do is teach them different avenues to express themselves other than, what they hear on the radio or doing in their communities right now that's unhealthy. So one of the things is meditation. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a song for you guys and I'll guide you guys at the beginning and then we'll do about 3 or 4 minutes of just closing our eyes, centering ourselves, and basically being able to release all the stress and all the problems in our head and think of nothing else. So let me go ahead and get the music started. I hope everybody's doing all right. I hope we don't need this meditation, but meditation is always good. Some stuff I listen to is binaural beats. A close friend of mine, hit me to binaural beats, and binaural beats help you when you're doing either. Sometimes you can put it in the background for work. I know some people like TV, but that's very distracting. It gets your neurons and brain cells moving in the background, kind of like muscle memory, without you even noticing. So, alrighty. So we'll start with some meditation Zen music. What I want you guys to do out there is to go ahead and close your eyes if you want to. Take a deep breath. And the theme of the day for our Black men is to allow yourself to be vulnerable. So in this breath, Allow yourself to have an open mindset, not for anybody else but yourself. Your focus right now is yourself. Focus on your breathing. Focus on what you came here to do. Breathe however you feel comfortable. Do not stress yourself right now. It's the time to imagine that you have no worries. Because if your mind says you have no worries, you have none. Indulge in your own spirit. Create your own affirmations and repeat them to yourself in this moment. Bring your focus only back to your breathing. And sit there for a minute. Slowly start bringing yourself back to reality. But welcoming all the challenges to come. For today, for tomorrow, for your next step. Prepare yourself to be indulged in knowledge, strong mindsets, community love, care, support, and peace. Bring ourselves back to reality. We're gonna prepare you guys as we get our. I'm gonna go step back into the backstage, and we're gonna check on our panelists. And I hope that put some of you guys at ease. I hope that it was new for some of you guys. I hope some of you guys didn't like it, because that's also good. Figuring out what you like and what you dislike in your coping skills, in your journey through health, is definitely part of the journey. Is figuring out what you like. It's the same thing as when you eat food. You're going to figure out what you like and what you don't like. And once you understand what's best for you, it's better to just, flow with that. I think most of us understand. So be receptive. I will be back to you shortly. And we will be back with the panelists. All right, people. I'm going to go ahead and start by introducing myself. I did a little bit. Like I said, I am a youth empowerment mental health advocate. And my business is called Neurospace. On all platforms, it's neurospace.llc. I like to do is to educate people about the stuff that they would have not known going through the regular school system, going through the regular life, and not really being taught the kind of stuff that actually helps them in the walk through life. So without further ado, we're going to start with our next panelist, and I'm going to have him introduce himself so we can kick this thing off. And that'll be Brother Imani Kaliid.
Hey, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello. Welcome. Good morning. My name is Imani Kaliid. I am an LA native. I am a career digital production professional. I am also author of There Was Violence, a gritty memoir based on my life. I am president of my 501(c), the Envia Foundation, a foundation dedicated to technology and services for victims of violent trauma. I'm also host of Survivor Stories from Pain to Power, a platform dedicated to hearing the stories and pushing advocacy for victims of violent trauma.
Awesome. And so one of the questions, actually, while we're getting started, I know not everybody else is here, but I asked you yesterday on one of our things, but what is exciting about this?
Man, what's exciting about this is, and I think I mentioned this yesterday, one of my favorite words is opportunity. And as it relates to this, the opportunity to be around like-minded individuals to actually learn and expose any blind spots that I might have and any blind spots that some of our viewers may have, some of the people in the future who see this, it may be seen. Just, it's just really about education, removing stigmas. I think that's at the high level what's exciting me and has me so eager to hear just the different voices and hear us bounce ideas off of each other, and also to really loop in some of the people who are joining us and hear some of the questions and curiosities they may have.
Absolutely. I appreciate you and welcome, Imani Kaliid. I can't wait to hear from you. Next, we'll have Dr. Franklin Soares. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us what we do and your excitement for today as well.
Hello, excuse me. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity for me to be a part of this great discussion. Again, my name is Dr. Franklin Soares. I'm a recent graduate of Louisiana State University in Louisiana. This includes mental health of K through 16, which includes K through 12, and then post-secondary. I look at trauma. I look at how students cope with their mental health, and I do a lot of work with that. So I'm very excited to be a part of this discussion. Also, as you can probably see in my little bio, I work for United Negro College Fund as well. And I have my own consulting business where I work with state agencies on truancy courts and so on and so forth, and how we can support and they can support their research in their support of Black students in Black and brown students with mental health. And so I'm very excited to be a part of this discussion. I look forward to enriching not just your lives, but my life as well today. And so thankful for this opportunity, and I'll leave it at that.
I appreciate you, Doctor. Next, I'll have Carlton Alexander go ahead and introduce himself and quickly show why he's excited about today.
Hello, thanks, Morris. Welcome, everyone. Hello, my name is Carlton Alexander. I am a master barber and business owner here in Atlanta, Georgia. Also a barber instructor at a cosmetology school. And my side job that I love to do is to motivate people. I'm a motivational speaker, and I like to equip people for their journey and whatever it is that they want to take on in this life to better themselves. And it helps me. It improves me to help someone else. So I'm just a servant, and I just love pouring into people, anyone. And so, yeah, so that's me.
Master.
I'm excited to be here.
I appreciate you, Mr. Alexander. Next, we're going to go to Gerard.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Gerard. I'm an educator, producer, and host of the Only One Mic podcast. I thank you, brothers, for inviting me, for Ms. Chapman for inviting me onto this platform to have an opportunity to speak on Black men and mental health, which I think is something that's very prevalent that we see going on today. And I hope to, be able to help aid in this conversation on mental health, collaborating with all these brothers. Hopefully the audience that's out there will take something from it and can pass it on to others. So that's who I am.
Appreciate you. Next up, we got Deacon Brandon Pumphrey.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Brandon Pumphrey, and as mentioned, I serve as a deacon at the Sanctuary Kingdom Square in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. Also serve as a board of directors member on the 501c3 nonprofit Anais Project, Inc., and serve also as a civilian employee for the United States Air Force. So really, to sum up myself, I'm a servant. I'm excited today again about the event today, really just to serve and to be served. So to pour in and to receive. So to be able to get information and give information. So I'm excited about this platform and with these gentlemen to be able to pour into them and to be poured into. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you for being here. And last but not least, what we have right now, Gerod Ware. He's one of my brothers, my co-stars, my co-host of Greenwood Podcast. Welcome, brother. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us why you're excited to be here today.
Yes, sir. Great morning, everybody. Need to be a part of the space. I am Gerod Ware. I'm the founder of the Floor is Yours podcast, community activist. After serving 26 years in the military, I just developed a love and a passion to serve people. And it's mainly through resourcing folks with the things they need to become better people, addressing our mental health concerns, challenging men to be the best who we can, because I believe a strong community that more specifically men are the pillar of a strong community. So just challenging ourselves and encouraging us to take our rightful place in our community so we can grow and just be better citizens of this world.
Well, Mr. Ware, like he said, men are definitely the pillar of the community. And as we are the pillars of community, we're going to go ahead and have one of these conversations, one of the tough conversations, and we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. All right. So, fellas, I'm going to give you all some of these first questions, and then we're going to have Dr. Knowles come in roughly in about 30 minutes. So we're going to indulge questions with him. I'm not going to forget about you guys when he is here because we are all important. And the word, it doesn't matter where it comes from. So without further ado, I'll start with the first question. What does Black men's mental health in the community look like to you? And Mr. Ware, since you were last, I want you to go ahead and kick that off.
Oh man, what does mental health look like to me and I come? It looks like a number of ways. Depends on, like always, your background. But as I stated in my introduction, for us to be the pillars in our community, we need to be mentally sound. I think about the Bible verse where it says, "He has not given us the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and sound mind." That sound mind piece, I think, is just important. I don't care what you want to do, what you want to be, who you want to interact with. If your mind is not right, it just puts you at a disadvantage in addressing the tough issues. So I think mental health is deliberate, it's intentional. We prepare ourselves to go to work. If we employed, we get dressed, we know our routes, we interact with people daily. So I'm saying that to say that it's intentional as those things. If we're preparing ourselves to go to work and interact with people, we need to be preparing ourselves mentally to be strong. There's this thing I saw on Facebook. It says that we may not be at fault for what happened to us in the past, those things that cause trauma, but we are responsible. So I think, again, we need to be intentional with what we do. We need to connect with those experts out there in the field that are addressing those things. And we need to be a part of important platforms like this that address these our mental health, and just be courageous, because it's not easy, right? But I think we need to be transparent and willing to talk about the things that are bothering us. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, it answered it more and beyond. But let me tell you this: that's more so part of the solution, and we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there, brother.
Okay.
But what this question really asking is, as we're looking at it, our point of view right now, us looking at the Black men's mental health, how does that look to you? You gotta answer that one.
Just real quick, since I went, I think it's challenging. We know about the stigma, but it's challenging, and what it looks like is specifically we're facing the challenge and we're ready to take it on. So does that answer it better?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You still answered it the first time.
Okay, cool.
Carl, Jerard, what does it
Yes,
look
sir.
like to you right now?
Well, to be quite honest with you, is one of those questions that all depends on what lens you're looking at it from. So I agree with Brother Ware there. To me personally, if I wanted to say what a person with a sound mental mind looks like, is someone who's focused, someone who's present, someone who's there for their family and their community. That's what a sound mental, person would look like, if you're sound. If your thoughts are a little bit more fluid, it can look a number of different ways. If you're dealing with a person who from day to day doesn't know where they're at, what their thoughts are, one way they can feel one way one day, then feel something different the next moment. I mean, it all depends. And I always bring it back to that whole sound, stable mind, which is something that we're all here discussing. Because a lot of times you might have people who go through different issues, trauma in any type of form can make you a little bit unstable if it's not properly checked, if it's not properly dealt with. So to answer your question, if hopefully I am answering your question, it all depends. It all depends on what you're looking at, who you're looking at. Of course, I can't look in your eyes, Mars, and see your past. I can't look at your eyes and see what you've been through. So looking at you now, I can say, all right, well, he's a put together brother. He seems like he's doing all right. But behind the curtain, I don't know what you're going through. You understand? So those are the things that we have to look at. It's like, how can you be present? How can you be sound for your community and your family? What can you do to ask for the help that you need if you need it? Is it a stigma on you that says, I can't do this, I can't ask for help because of my family or my community background, that says that me asking for help is a weak thing? So I just put on the front every day and I might just walk around, but inside I'm breaking down slowly, if not fast in some particular areas. So it depends. It all depends on what we're looking at and who we're looking at.
Absolutely. And that was a great answer. I'm gonna go with the other Carl Alexander. What does the majority of Black men's mental health look like to you?
I agree with my brothers when they were talking. A word that just kept coming to my mind was support. Support. I think we all face kinds of challenges in our lives and come from different kinds of backgrounds. But one thing that we have in common, if we are like-minded individuals, we can have each other's back, and have these kinds of conversations and support each other in that process of healing, in that journey of healing. And so I don't know. I just kept hearing that, like, support. I appreciate platforms like this, Mogul Global TV Network, and other like-minded platforms like this that speak to some of the things that we need to talk about. We need to have these conversations. We need to support each other more. We need to support each other so much, especially in today's time and what's going on in our world. So that's just something I kept hearing, was support.
Absolutely. Support is definitely one of the biggest things in anything you're doing, anything you're trying to get done, especially in your mental health.
Yes.
Our guest, I just want everybody to know that if you guys comment in the message section, we can see it. So go ahead and comment in there, answer the questions yourself, be interactive. I will definitely be talking back and forth with you guys as well. If you guys have something to say, we'll definitely hit a touch on it if it makes sense and if it's actually entertaining, and with what we're going on, we're definitely down for all of that. So definitely get into it. What's on your mind? This is supposed to be a safe space. We were supposed to be all in on this. You know, we got our panelists here, but we're all on the same level as humans. So don't think that anybody here, even when Dr. Knowles gets in here, that anybody is above us. But, you know, we are all humans. We're all Black men per se. This is what it's for, that the growth of Black men. So it doesn't really matter what you're saying. This is a safe space, fellas, and I hope you guys feel that way as well. So we'll go ahead and switch to the next question. I want this to be a little different, and like I said, interactive people that's in, you guys can shout out you guys' answers in the comment section. But I want a couple of you guys on the panel to shout out, just, it could be one word answers or just really short, but give me some stigmas that are hindering Black men from attending to their mental health, right? And then I'll have some of the other ones. I want them, the other half, to answer, how do we change these narratives? Okay. So I'll start with, let's see, Brandon Pumphrey, go ahead, and a couple of stigmas.
Fear and uncertainty.
I like those. Kaliid?
Weakness, perception of weakness.
Absolutely. Tony?
Generational curse.
I think we basically hit on some major ones. I'll go back to Kaliid to go ahead and explain some of those, and then we'll go to Dr. Soares. How can we change those narratives?
Well, I think we change those narratives by modeling it and opening our minds to a lot more nuance. Like, look, I'm from South Central LA. I come from a neighborhood with gangsters, drug dealers, stick-up kids. I come from an athletic world, hyper-masculine individuals who demonstrate toughness and masculinity at the highest levels, whether it's good or bad. What is missed in the conversation sometimes is that two or more things can happen in parallel at once. You can be a physically tough and intimidating man, but what can also be happening in parallel is that you have some emotional challenges and some emotional deficiencies that you inherited as a child. But that doesn't make you weak. That makes you human. And if those deficiencies and challenges aren't addressed as you grow into a big, strong man, then guess what? Then that's still an issue that can challenge you and ail you. And I've seen that in some of the men I've We've crossed each other's paths on this continent. When I lived in Europe, men I know in Asia, it is a human condition in its essence. But what stops a lot of guys, and myself included, is the blind spot of not being self-aware enough to know that, hey, you have these areas in your life that you have to work on. In my case, it was violent trauma, and is to address that. And you don't have the at-bats, you don't have the practice, and you don't gain the comfort of dealing with those issues. And I'll throw one more thing in. Acquiring a support system of men you can trust and women you can trust, where you have this open channel where you can discuss these things. See, I at my stage of life, I've grown accustomed to talking about my feelings and not being so consumed about what people's opinions may be. So there's less fear in that's part of my goal, and part of my mission is getting men, Black men, to become accustomed to, one, being self-aware enough to know that there's some things that may be going on with you. Two, getting support systems built up where you're in a perpetual space of cleaning that filth that may be ailing you. And then, the other thing is just really teaching the next generation, the young men that are coming behind us. Like, we have to model that, and we have to change our relationship with so-called failure. Like, if you stumble at it like I did, it's okay. You just keep your feet moving.
Keep the feet moving is definitely something that we need to say in the proper way, because it's definitely something to say, but the general term or the way to say keep your feet moving in the Black men's is you can't. I think and Tony can give you some. It's a little different. Keep going, keep your head up. Don't worry about it. Brush it off. Don't. It's more so don't handle. Keep your feet moving in the positive light is one of the best things we can role model for other Black men. Dr. Soares, what's some things we can do to combat these stigmas?
So, excuse me. I talked a little about this yesterday in our teaser, but I want to let the audience and let the brothers on the panel just hear what we just talked about. Everything we talked about was from a negative standpoint. It wasn't a positive standpoint, right? And so I think we need to go back, and I'm writing a paper right now on this kind of work. But I think and someone just talked about this, we need to look at the United States historically. We've never been put in a place to help or let our being be who we should be, right? Economically, access to medical, positive role models, right? We always looked at negative, right? We're in the prison pipeline, right? So on and so forth. So America has never supported us to be the people we should be, right? And so I think that's one of the things is we need to first look at historically where we are at and how they support us. And so if we don't get the support there, how are we going to support each other? I secondly want to look at foundation. And I think I talked about this yesterday. I'm going to talk about this again today. But I grew up in a single parent home. My mother raised me, right? And so nothing against her, but a lot of sons have single mothers, right? And they don't know how to be a father and give the support they need for people like me to be who we can be. I like I said yesterday, and I'll say, my mother said to me, you don't go see a counselor. And I didn't see a counselor. I was 27 years old. I'm 39 now. 27 years. All the trauma, everything I went through, I talked about yesterday. In 2017, I tried to commit suicide. And this is why I'm in this space today, is because I don't want no one else to feel like that. And that's why I'm doing the research I want to do. And so many people have these same stories that I had and that we're talking about today. And so we need to stop building foundations. We talked about this yesterday. I know we'll go a little bit more into it. Mentorship. We just talked about that. Mentorship, support of one another. Platforms like this, right? We only have 34 people. Where are all the people at? And we can't stop this today. Like I said yesterday, we need to continue this. All the brothers, all the people in the audience, we need to create our own silos and say, hey, come and talk to me. I'm here to support you. we don't have avenues to do that. And I think we're starting to do that now, but we need to continue doing that. And I think last and not least, we just, I think that, and I talked about this before, we need more counselors and therapists, and we don't have a lot of Black males who are like this. And if we don't have, and research shows this, so when I look at the research, it shows that Black men are least likely to go to spaces where they don't feel that people understand them, right? And so, if you go to a white space and you have a white counselor or Asian counselor, whatever, there might be some similarities, but you might not be as vulnerable as you want to be because they don't understand your plight. And so I think we need to start, higher education, nonprofit agencies, the United States government. We need to start looking at more counselors who are Black, more therapists, and know that we can be that we can support our brothers, that we can get to that space and let others know that, hey, you can be a part of this pipeline. And this is a formal way of supporting one another as well. So I'll stop there, but those are some things I'm thinking about how we can break the narrative.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing that people missed out on, and that's the support. You have to support people doing the stuff that you want to see in your community. You can't just be like, I hear it all the time in my line of business when I'm throwing community events and hanging out with the youth and stuff. It's like, oh yeah, we need this. Yeah, well, we need money, you know what I mean? And not for me, for the community, for these events, you know what I mean? And then that's when they're quiet. But it's all about talk, and it's usually just talk on the lower scale. Some people don't want to talk about these issues on platforms like this, right? Because it's on a larger scale. Now you have fear of judgment. We have to get to the mindset where judgment doesn't matter. I think a lot of these people I caught myself in this, right? Any of you guys here ever been walking on the street, and while you're walking on the street, a car, somebody you don't know passes by, and you fix up how you walk because you was walking goofy. You was getting it. You was walking goofy, whatever, and you got caught slipping by a stranger. What is that mindset? You probably will never see that stranger again. You don't know that stranger. You don't know that car. You see what I'm saying? That mindset of fear of judgment is one of the biggest things that I think Black men definitely have because of our past, but men in general definitely have, but humans have, and it's something that we have to break out of. Let's see. Well, we got a little bit of a time on this one more question. Anthony, you think you got a little bit of breaking of these stigmas in your head?
Was that directed to me? I know you say Anthony.
My bad. And I'm trying not to call you Tony. Not everybody knows you as Tony. Anthony.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, definitely aimed at you. But yeah, what kind of stuff do you have to go ahead and break these stigmas?
Well, one of the key things that has been powerful in working with men through our nonprofit is the power of being present. And what I mean by that, that's not just being in the same room with a whole bunch of men, and you just talk about a specific topic. That's not the power of presence. The power of presence is actually you're going to a brother, you know what they're struggling with, and you try to put yourself in their shoes, and you try to understand where they're coming from, mentally, spiritually, and so forth. You're trying to understand what predicament they're going through, and you're trying to help that brother in their time of need. That's the power of presence, and that's also showing empathy. And one of the things that I really love, and I tell the men all the time, hey, you know what? We might have gone through similar circumstances. Imani, I've seen people get shot. I've been shot at, from my hometown. It's real. I've been gang jump. You name it. I've gone through it, but there's people that have gone through more serious things that I've gone through, but we can relate on similar things. So they could put themselves in my shoes and I could put myself in their shoes. We might not have the same feelings. We might not hate the same scope, but hey, we have common ground in which we could come together. And then here's the powerful thing about it. Once we come together, we could also say how many other brothers are dealing with the same things that we're dealing with. And then it multiplies from there. So it starts with just being present. having platforms like this, being present, being in attendance, this is a start. This is a spark. And then what is going to happen? It's going to continue to spark other men to say, you know what? I need to be more open. I need to be more transparent in what I'm doing as well. And I love the fact, I think it was Dr. Soares mentioned, we need to have more nonprofits. We need to have more organizations. We need to actually speak up more and require more from our federal government to support initiatives that help our community, to provide more solutions to help us, people of us, our color, to have more representation to help us with issues that we deal with as a community.
Absolutely. One of those things you said in there was the presence. That's very important, but consistent presence is more important than just the presence. And that's one thing I'm learning as I have life, but I also have mentees, and I also have a child of my own, to where I don't bring her with my mentee. So now I'm spreading love, but there's a multitude of love to be going around. There's a multitude of peace to go around as long as you have your own, and that consistent presence is always important in these youth's life. And anybody, actually an adult man, that support, being consistently present and holding him accountable is always important. We'll shoot to the next question. You guys definitely are rolling. We're on a roll. We some trailblazers right now. That's what I'm talking about. Let me go ahead and let's see. I'll start with Carlton Alexander. I'm gonna hit the question. What traumas or experience have Black men faced within the last generations that has shaped these or shaped the Black men's mental health today?
Can you repeat that question for me, please?
No problem.
It was breaking up a little.
You good? What traumas or experiences have Black men faced within the last generations that have shaped these stigmas that we've talked about and or shaped the Black man's mental health?
Well, I think someone touched on it earlier about the absence of a father in the home. A lot of young men are being raised by single women in this generation, and that definitely takes it affects in certain kinds of ways. Certain things are neglected or missing that is necessary, that's needed. Just that balance, that support. And another thing, I think our society a lot of times indirectly or directly abuses some of our young men, and it shapes and alters how they go to work, how they do their day to day. And when society beats down on you, when you go to work and it beats down on you, your neighborhood, your financial status, and things of that nature, or your relationship, when all those things beat down on you, I think it takes a toll on a lot of young men's minds, and they grow into men who have unresolved issues. So I really think that throughout, generations, everything starts with childhood. We all know that. And it's a very delicate time when you're a young man trying to discover who you are and discover how to move and how to make decisions as a young man. And without the right guidance and navigation in life, that can be very, very detrimental. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the stuff as we are here today has been detrimental. And yes. I think a lot of people don't know, as I'm going through certified peer recovery specialist certification, I'm learning that a lot of people don't know technically what trauma is, and trauma is a perspective thing. Because one person can go through, running away from a bug when you're like, man, what's wrong with you? And trauma is definitely a perspective thing. And some people don't know they've been through trauma. So when we say, oh, this was a traumatic experience, somebody goes, well, I went through that, but I'm okay. But am I? It starts opening doors. And I think talking about these traumatic experiences and allowing somebody to start opening their mind and figuring out if they had their own is one of the biggest things. So fellas, we're going to go ahead and take a break. Everybody, we're going to take a break. We're going to go into our breakout rooms. We're going to do about 5 minutes to 10 minutes or so. And then when we come back, we'll be bringing on Dr. Mathew Knowles on. And we're definitely going to enjoy his time here. Like I said, I don't see any comments going on. What's going on with our audience? We need to get hype. Y'all need to get energetic. I know that I hyped y'all up on that meditation, so I don't want to hear nobody else quiet. We want to be involved in this safe space. We want to be basically involved in indulging ourselves in the information as well as interacting. So go ahead, go to the breakout rooms. When you go to the breakout rooms, go ahead and click a chair. You can join me. You can join Dr. Soares. You can join any of these fellas on the panel and go to their table. Just click on the chair and they'll have a topic if you guys want to talk about it in there. I know we have a couple of ladies on here. You ladies have your own breakout room. Just when it'll send you to the breakout rooms, click a chair and you guys go ahead and get the discussion started. Like I said, Dr. Mathew Knowles will be here hopefully when we come back, and we will go ahead and take our break now. Welcome back, people, to the State of My Mental, a Black man's POV hosted by Mogul TV Global. And we have a special treat for you guys. Dr. Mathew Knowles has joined us on the panel, and he will be joining us for about an hour to give his knowledge. And he's definitely an inspiring author, an inspiring father, and an inspiring businessman. And so from the beginning, we're going to go ahead. I actually want to introduce two more other people, but I did want to introduce Dr. Knowles. Thank you for coming, and we're lucky to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning to you all.
Would you like to say anything to people real quick?
No, I'm just excited to be on this panel and to talk about an important topic, something that's very close to myself. When we look at our mental health as Black men. So I'm excited to just be on this journey with you today.
Appreciate you. So we'll go to Brother Jeremy Walker real quickly. Introduce yourself and then say why you're excited to be here.
Alafia, everybody. My name is Jeremy Walker, also known as Soul Brother J on all platforms. I'm in the East Eshe tradition. I'm known as Eshufimi in that tradition, which is an African traditional religion. And Hoodoo, I'm known as Uncle Soul to my people out there. I know some of y'all out there in the audience, so peace to y'all. I am a bone reader, tarot reader, Usui Reiki master. I am a spiritual counselor. I have a foundation, Coins and Cowrie Spiritual Services, where we help people align themselves with their spiritual gifts. We help them with meditation. We help them find their center, get well within themselves, so that they can be a pillar in their community in a spiritual sense. And I'm excited to be here because it's a blessing to be around so many different caliber of men, types of men that actually bring so much wisdom to the table, and it's so good to be able to express that with you all. And I look forward to it.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. We definitely appreciate you being here. And the holistic approach is definitely an up-and-coming mental health coping skill. And I love it actually myself. And I'm implementing it for a lot of my youth as I empower them through their own mental health journey. So, Dr. Knowles, some would say you have pretty decent parenting skills. So for the rest of us, in pursuit of the paternal and personal success that you yourself has accomplished, what are a few tips to being a Black father?
Well, I think it's a lot of things. I think first you have to lead by example. For my kids, my former wife, we owned a hair salon. So she worked on Friday nights very late, Thursdays and Fridays, and all day Saturday. So as a dad, I got to spend a lot of time with my girls and to help them find their passion and expose them to a whole lot of things and build that trust when they were kids. And I think those are the things as parents, it's important for us to understand our kids, expose them to a plethora of opportunities in life, And then just sit back and watch what they gravitate to, and then be there, be present for them. My kids were young, I was always present for them.
Absolutely.
I'd like to say one other thing also. In our household, we were quite successful in corporate America and as entrepreneurs, but we also shared with our kids. It wasn't just our successes, we shared our failures, and I think that's real important.
Absolutely. And that's something I'm actually learning as a father. My daughter's 5, and you start seeing that stuff. You start seeing that you have to show failures, because she'll say, you don't know everything. And I'm just like, hold on a second, and they have to know that as human beings, or else their mental health will be, in jeopardy, because certain thoughts come of you trying to be perfect in front of your kids. And I think that is important, like you said.
And I think, to understand in our vulnerability lies our safety, and to be vulnerable in front of our kids is important. Especially as Black men, we struggle with vulnerability.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So any of the fathers on the panel, I don't want to assume, if you guys want to say what it means to be a Black father, or tips to be a Black father within the realm of their mental health, because vulnerability and being present and showing failures is all under the scope of mental health.
Hey, if I can just real briefly, just expound on the by being vulnerable. I know as Black men, we don't want to seem weak. So we hear that word vulnerable and it's automatic. You have a pause. But I think there's strength in vulnerability. There's trust in vulnerability. And to be able to develop that kind of relationship with your kids, it strengthens trust. And to your point, Morris, you talked about how we don't need to show ourselves as perfect. I think it puts an unrealistic expectation on how you're going to live your life. And again, just speaking on vulnerability for me and my daughter, I talk to her about that a lot. And I'll say this in closing my comments. You have to be careful with who you're vulnerable with, because some people will use that as a way to take advantage of you. So it's also important to use discernment as you navigate on how to be vulnerable and what to be vulnerable about.
Absolutely. Being vulnerable is one of the biggest things allows men to be able to start doing, or realize it's something that is healthy to do, is to be vulnerable. Any other fathers we got to answer those tips?
Yeah, actually, I can contribute something, Morris, if you don't mind.
Bring it in.
All right. As a father, to kind of piggyback on what Dr. Knowles was saying, you want to also be an example to your child or children. The thing is that we have to recognize when we've made the same mistakes they've made at our age or younger, be able to talk to them about the mistakes that you've made in the past, or just, I don't like to say mistakes all the time, because mistakes are something that you're not aware of. Some things that we've done, we were fully aware. So we just had bad judgment at that time. And to be able to kind of delve back in your past and to say, I've done this. I've made this misstep here. This is why you shouldn't do it. These are the things that you have to have, the conversations that you have to have with your kids. There's a lot of things out there in the world that's ready to suck them up the minute they walk out the door and out your presence. But if you can instill in them seeds of, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to move. This is how you need to think on certain matters. This is what you need to look out for. These things won't leave them, And me also being a spiritual person, I believe that you should have a good spiritual footing in your home. I'm a true believer. I believe in God, and I believe that once you take the absence of God out of your home, you take God out of your home, it's complete chaos from there on. So if you kind of keep these spiritual footings as well as these natural footings within your kids, instill these things in them, that you can sit back and just watch what you put in. It's just like you put that seed in the ground, you watch it, you cultivate it, and you just watch it grow. And you'll see in most cases that some things that even though you think that your children or they don't hear you at that moment, you'll see that they actually are listening to you. You just watch the actions. I'm a big person on, now I told you, just watch the action and see what happens. You know, some things they'll say to you that you don't even remember that you said to them, but it's something that's positive. You know, so the hope is that when they grow and they have their kids and, you know, they can pass these traditions on. So definitely you want to make sure that you're an example in your home, you're present, because that word is coming up a lot in this conversation since we started this morning, is presence, presence, presence. You have to be there, you know, mentally as well as physically. As we all know, gentlemen, there are a lot of men sitting on their couches right now that's in the home but not present, you know, and not knowing what's going on around them. So these are the things that I think that we should look out as, especially for Black men, because our sons and daughters are being eaten up out here left and right. And the disparity is already against them the minute that the doctor hands them to you. So you have to be able to instill these things from day one, from the jump. I believe that you do this even while they're young. You instill in these things in them. So that's just my 2 cents on it, gentlemen.
And I appreciate you, Carl. And one thing you touched on was spirituality. Now, I do not believe that I'm a spiritual man myself now, but I do not believe that when you take Christianity out of the household that it could very well, you know, fall apart. However, to each his own. You know, as long as you are healthy and doing that healthy coping to maintain your journey, I think that's the best thing. But spirituality is definitely needed, just not in the Christianity or religious sense. It can, any kind of spiritual faith, as I'm sure Mr. Walker can talk about on his holistic approach and stuff, is spirituality is very just important. Some faith in something, because other people, the youth, as we see, they have faith. Their spirituality is there. It's just for you know, little baby, you know, certain entertainment that basically controls their behavior. So I'm gonna have Tony go ahead and speak on some tips.
If I could just say one more thing, and it's another important thing that you said, and I don't mean to cut you off, Tony, but it's another important thing that you said there too, is what we're taking in. What is our kids taking in? You know, there's a big saying that when I was a kid didn't make no sense. My mom and teachers and father and everybody should say the same thing, is garbage in and garbage out. There's a lot of garbage in there. The more that you consume in your mental diet is what you're going to you're going to show out in the world, you know? So of course, everybody has their own thoughts in regards to spirituality. So if we can just bring it back to, that's just my thought on it. Also too, just a good moral base. Even if your spirituality is different, your moral base is all based on something. Throw that in there, Tony. I didn't mean to.
Absolutely, moral base.
Well.
No, you good.
Now they know you as Tony. What we got, Tony?
Yeah, one of the things that's helped me as a father, I was a blended father first before we had our two last of the Mohicans, what I call them, is being intentional with our kids. Actually, one of the things that I implemented as a father was I would spend a day in the month with just one particular child, from the oldest all the way down to the youngest. And in doing that, and I think Dr. Knowles mentioned this, exposing them to different things or really trying to get insight into their world. What do they like? What do they don't like? For instance, my second oldest son, for me, it's just like, hey, I love sports. I love football. I love basketball. I did all of those sports things. And for him, he is the complete opposite. So at first I was just like, hey, you know, you should be playing basketball. I mean, he's taller than me. I mean, he should be, you know, playing basketball, making me some money, you know, but, you know, he's the complete opposite. But it took a lot for me to understand, hey, he's not that kind of kid. So I need to understand what his interests are. And he likes the anime. He likes comics. He likes drawing. He likes doing all the art stuff. So it took me to come out of myself and my expectation of what I think my kids should be doing and truly understand that my child is an individual. They have their own interests. They have their own personal goals that they want to shoot for. And understanding that and being intentional in that area helped me to be a better father to them, because they all have different interests. They all have different things that they want to do. My daughter, she is straight up entrepreneur. She's already got 2 businesses that she's going to launch within the next year. And she's also writing her own book, so it's kind of like, I'm in overdrive now trying to keep up with her because I want to make sure that I'm being intentional and make sure that all of her dreams and all of her goals are being accomplished. But the other key piece that I heard is the transparency aspect. I actually asked my kids to give me permission to make mistakes. And the reason why is because I'm going to make a mistake. As a father, I'm not always going to get it right. I'm not always going to make the best decisions, but I asked them to give me permission to make a mistake. And the reason I say that is because I want to let them know, hey, if they make a mistake, dad is still going to be there. Dad is going to love them. Dad is still going to be there for them no matter what. So you can always come to dad and say wherever is on your mind because there's no judgment in that particular area. So those are some of the things that's helped me out.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, Brother Tony. And those are one of the key points that you said was that you have to basically meet them to what they're doing. A lot of times we portray what we like and what we do on our kids or just people around us in general. And when we catch ourselves doing that, we allow, and so we just bring them back to say, okay, well, what do you want to do? And we try to evolve to like that as well, or at least support it. So I'm gonna go ahead and go back to Dr. Knowles, and then this question will be for Carlton Alexander, Dr. Soares, and Imani Kaliid as well after. So, Mr. Knowles, with all the negative influences and platforms that are ever so present and easily accessible in the lives of our youth, having such a strong connection to the entertainment industry yourself, what are some of the ways we can bring long-lasting and positive influences on our youth?
Well, I mean, immediately as you was reading that, Marcellus, is social media. Social media has its pluses, but it has a lot of minuses, especially for young 8 to 15, 16-year-old kids. There's a lot of things that they find for the first time out on social media and online. And I think as parents, it's tough. I'm 70 years old. I'm the oldest probably on this panel. But for young people who have kids today, it has to be a challenge to manage that social media because it does something to a child that takes away their self-worth if it's not managed correctly. Just the whole concept that I need you to like me, and if you don't like me, then I feel that my self-esteem is diminished and my self-worth is diminished. So I mean, clearly for me, the thing that we have to really look at is how to manage social media with our kids.
Yeah, the diminishing that self-worth is a direct attack on the mental health of a human being, and we could say that women are more affected, I think, bodily image wise, but I think men are more affected because they don't come out and say what they've been affected from.
Right. Exactly.
So, Carlton, you can go next. What do you think? How can we combat this social media and the entertainment kind of diminishing the self-worth of our youth?
Ooh, that's a loaded question, just to be honest. Man, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. I think, someone said earlier, being an example in my experience, personal experience, I'm a barber. So when I get a chance to interact with my young clients, I try to have conversations and thought-provoking conversations that get them to think and to kind of view their environment in a better light. And I think they even look at me to see how I move. Young guys, they are very, very aware, and they will watch you. They will watch your movements. They'll watch how you brush your hair. They watch how you dress, how you walk, how you speak. And I pride myself in carrying myself in a way that at least someone, when they see me, they get good examples. They get some kind of knowledge and intellect and esteem of that nature. So I think the big thing is being an example. I can't compete with social media. I know that. I can't compete with social media, but the least I can do is be an example when they come into my environment and in my space.
I appreciate you. You tackled it well. You tackled it well. And the thing about you being a barber is you get to see the people that are going through that diminishing of self-worth, because they got to go get a haircut to feel better. They got to go there. I'm sure you have people that are there every week, being there every single week. I mean, am I wrong?
Sorry.
I said, I'm sure you have people there every single week. So that's one of the definitely the things that people are always trying to do. And I think for me, I'm gonna just answer the question real quick. It is the way to combat social media, because there is a way, and you're not going to be able to defeat it, but letting people know or enlightening them that it has the ability to diminish your self-worth. So them knowing that itself helps them to basically combat the thoughts and ideas that they gain from social media. I'm gonna go ahead and go to Dr. Soares. You can go ahead and answer this, and then we'll get Mr. Ware and Kaliid in here.
So there's as you wrote the question, I need to kind of write my answer so that I stay on task. So there's 5 things I think about. And some of the brothers already talked about, and actually the audience is on Dr. Knowles as well. I think first, I talked about before, mentoring. I think I don't have any kids, right? But that doesn't mean I still can't be a father to those who are fatherless, right? And so I think we need to step up and step into the void for those who don't have fathers. That's first. I think the youth, to make positive influences, need community. And I think that's what Dr. Knowles was saying, and some of the other people were saying as well. And so for those who don't know where to start with their children, I would say look for organizations in your local community, nonprofits, to have your child join, especially if they're Black men. So one of the things I didn't talk about is I'm about 100 Black men of my area, right? And so we have a mentoring program that we do that's free of charge, doesn't cost nothing. And so I think looking for things like that, the Boys and Girls Club, I was a part of the Boys and Girls Club when I was young. And so those are things that you can do that can help connect you to your community and so on and so forth. I wanted to talk about connection, right? And so one thing that I have done is I create barbershop talks in my community in Baton Rouge, but also in my colleges and campuses, because as I don't know if you all know this, but Black students, Black male students are least likely to graduate in college and higher education. The research shows that. So what can we do to help them to persist through college? And so one of the ways that we can do that is have platforms like this, but barbershops. We have barbers come in, volunteer, and come and speak to the students while getting a haircut. And in the years that I've done it here locally, the numbers have increased with Black men going to get the help they need because they see that they are valued, they matter, they are the conversation is needed. They're not alone. We talked about this before about self-isolation, right? When I feel I'm alone, I'm not going to go to anyone. But if I see that someone else has the same situation, I'm going to go and get the help I need. And so I think that's important too. I said this last night, I'm going to say it again. We need to meet our kids where they're at, right? And so you might not understand, you might not be the most socially savvy kind of father, right? Or mentor, or whatever the case is. Get the skill sets to learn how to do that so you can connect to your little one. Maybe playing video games, right? I don't like video games, right? But I learned how to play video games because that's what my mentees like to do. So I have to play these games so that I know how to do it, right? And so these are things that I listen to, Drake or so on and so forth. I might not like the genre, but I'm going to listen to it because I want to connect and understand what they're listening to. And then last but not least, I think someone said this in the audience, and we just said this before, but love is needed. the one thing in families is we don't have a lot of love for one another, and it shows in our communities. When you don't have the foundation of love in your family, it's going to then transpire into other areas of their life and into our community. And so I definitely think we need love. I think love is very important. And I'll stop there because I know we have a couple other speakers, but just some things to think about.
Oh, so as I tell you all the time, if you got good points, please let them out, okay? And now that our audience is actually becoming alive and I'm missing it, let me go ahead and read some of the stuff from the audiences real quick and we'll jump back. Larry Whittaker said something about meeting the people at the, take from the school systems and the prison pipelines. This is the stuff we have to go. We have to go talk to these people. We have to go support these people in their journeys. The people, most of the people in prison are there because their mental health was lacking before. So this is the kind of stuff that is going on. We got Malik Carlos all the way from the Virgin Islands talking about being aware and being involved, using positive yet pointed language with love. Like the last one, love is needed throughout this stuff. And Dr. Soares said something about isolation. When you go and isolate yourself, where do you go? You don't want to talk to anybody. Where do you go? I'll tell you where, right here. And I'll be there all day to feel better because I'm looking at somebody else feeling better for their moment that they posted. So I'm going to go ahead and send it to Kaliid, and then we'll have Ware, and then we'll switch questions. We'll switch gears.
Hey, fellas, Dr. Knowles. The gentleman said, I have a slightly different slant on it. And what I factor in when I mentor, what I factor in when I talk to my nieces and nephews is to really focus on their critical thinking skills and their discernment. I came up during a time where there was, gangster rap coming into the world. And so did my peers. So what helped us to filter the bad ideas and the bad decision making out is our ability to distinguish what a good path is versus a bad path. And I think that same tool, that same method of discernment applies to this age of social media with people coming up. I think a lot of kids and adults are flying in the dark, and they don't have a destination or an endpoint in sight. They don't distinguish a bad decision versus a bad decision. And so what happens, they get on these paths of prison. They get on this path of a bad relationship or a toxic relationship. So I bring that all back to say it's all about discernment and critical thinking. And I guess my last point, when I'm talking to younger people and mentoring, I don't necessarily push decision-making into their brains. I let them fumble through it and figure it out. I want them to learn how to operate in chaos. I want them to learn consequences to help refine those critical thinking skills. So again, for me, it's discernment and critical thinking.
Appreciate you. And that right there is feed a man fish, he'll eat for a day, but teach him how to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime, right? Teaching these young people how to make the decision on what they spend their time indulging in or what they spend their time, saving in that mindset is definitely way more important than telling them, hey, you're doing the wrong thing.
Right. It makes a great quarterback great. It's the pre-snap read. It's like getting out of trouble before the trouble is at your doorstep.
Tell people that all the time. I'd say people beat themselves up all the time, but I think beating yourself up thing is kind of like oh, I did it kind of thing. Now I'm upset. Most people do that when I say, hey, look, beat yourself up when you're thinking about making that decision, because you already know. Most people know. But if you beat yourself up before you make the decision, you might be better off for it. Real quickly, we'll wrap this one up. G Ware, what you got on this one?
Yes, sir. And I'll be real brief because a lot of what I was going to say has already been said here. Great points, gentlemen. But the challenge is not really understanding the scope of social media. It's more than Facebook and IG. And, you got some of the most powerful organizations in the world on social media, influencing with countless of dollars. And I say that because I think about my years in the military. to how it developed to know social media usage to it's one of its most powerful and influential tools. So understanding that, I'm thinking as we're speaking right now, there are powerful organizations out there countering everything that we're doing, like real time, right here, right now. And when we understand that, it was said earlier that it can't stop with these conversations. I just challenge all you to think like, what am I going to do when this ends? You know, I was thinking like, yeah, I'm going to go in and, you know, go shopping, and I'm still going to go shopping and, you know, enjoy the weekend. But it's going to be on my mind, like everything that we do, social media is ingrained in our society, so we can't avoid it. But it is, what are we going to do and how are we going to use it to our advantage and be responsible users of that? So just want to state that real briefly.
The part about the advantage, the healthy advantage that you get when you actually focus on this stuff is it's worth it. It's worth it. It's about that same thing as spirituality. When you have faith in something, all the stuff you do within that faith is worth it when that faith comes to fruition. So, Dr. Knowles, we're back to you. I appreciate you listening in on us. But the next question for you would be, what mindset does a Black man need to have when it comes to business and or success?
It's a good question. What mindset? You know, I always say there was a chaotic part of self. Each of us have that. I mean, kids, but we have to get ourself in the right place first. I want to talk about that because it's almost deflecting what I wanted to really talk about. That is, what do we as Black men need to do to get help for ourselves, to get the mental support that we need in part of health and wellness? I'll tell the story real quick. I've been in therapy throughout my life, 10 years. I called my therapist just recently. I'm a cancer survivor. And when COVID first hit, I had anxiety attacks. And I was so cautious. My wife, I didn't want her to go outside the house. I didn't want anybody to bring anything in. I knew I needed help. And so, you know, when we look at between the ages of 18 and 44, Black men and Hispanic, only 24% of them go and seek help for the mental part of health and the anxiety. But when we got white counterparts, it's 45%. So we have to, as Black men, understand that we need to get sometimes help for ourselves. I have a very compulsive, and that came about from my trauma growing up in Alabama. I said I'm 70 years old, but I never went to a Black school. So I was the first in elementary, Catholic elementary, white junior high school, white high school, and had a tremendous amount of trauma. Couldn't understand why I was so compulsive in everything I did. And that was because that chaotic part of self just didn't have the self-esteem and self-worth that was beaten out of me when I was a child. So I want us to also look in the mirror. If we want to be great fathers, we have to also seek help for ourselves. We can't help others until you help yourself. That's why they say on the airplane, first put the mask on you, then on your child. We ain't here talking about putting the mask on the child. Let's talk about putting the mask on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That makes sense. not the plane reference makes sense. And that'll tell people that consistently. First of all, you can't help somebody if you're not where you need to be. And nobody's ever where they need to be. You should always be growing and successing. But when you understand what you need to do and your healthy coping skills are there, you can then start supporting. Put the mask on first before you help somebody else. I'm going to go ahead and go to Mr. Walker. You got the question, you need it again. What mindset does a Black man need to have when it comes to business and or success?
The first thing I kind of wanted to touch on what Dr. Knowles just said, that was amazing, was that we have to learn how to go in with our own shadow work and to actually sit within ourselves to learn how we make decisions. Are we making decisions based on trauma? Are we making decisions on money based on the lack thereof and growing up in poverty? Are we operating in survivor mode? Do we know how to excel? Do we know what it means to excel? What does it look like to us? What does it feel like to us? If we've never encountered those things and never seen an example of those things, we're only going to operate in the space of lack. So we're only going to know what happened to us, what grandpa did, how grandpa survived, how the things that I went through, the things that hurt me, not dealing with that. And all of those things are coming together to form a way for me to make a decision, and it's clouding my judgment. So in order to move out of that space, we have to go within and sit within ourselves as well as therapy to take accountability and say, hey, what I'm learning here wasn't right. Reparenting ourselves as men. Sometimes we have to step back and go within ourselves and say, hey, you weren't taught the right way in this. This is the way that I should learn. A mentor, no matter what age you are, there's always somebody above you that know more than you, that have experienced more than you, that can show you the way. And sitting with those people and having your identity recalibrated to fit where you're trying to go as a man in this day and age.
Absolutely. Being able to be receptive to knowing that one of the people just said, you do not know what you don't know, which means you do not know everything. So being able to be vulnerable, as we said earlier, and say, look, I need this knowledge. I need somebody that has this knowledge so that I can progress. And then something to what Dr. Knowles said is that we as Black individuals, we're talking 3 generations. Some of our grandparents are still alive, and some of you guys are just 1 generation away. And as in Dr. Knowles' case, he was probably about a couple of years, or not even the years, to where he said that he was at a white school, and that the integration happened not too long ago. It was about roughly 60 plus years. It's not even a decade ago. People don't understand that. And that's right there. That's 2 generations away from me. You know what I'm saying? And people don't take that into account, that all of this plays into our mental health, where we went to school, our environment, how we learned, what was going on during that time. And that leads to what we do later in as far as business and success. We don't have the mindset of business or success. I never even thought I could own a business. I just thought it was white people stuff. And that's a weird mindset to have, unfortunately. We'll go ahead and go to Brother Pumphrey. What mindset does a Black man need to have for success?
And great points by everyone so far. And some of the things that I took away that I incorporate as well, it's really about, as Brother Walker said, self-awareness. That's a big key. Being aware of the source of your behavior, or if you're, as Dr. Knowles indicated about, if you're impulsive, or understanding where those behaviors come from, and knowing yourself, knowing where did this come from, if I'm impulsive, if I have these kind of behaviors. And also, I would say the best mindset to have is balance. You really need to, because we're always developing, and we're always growing. So having that balance and having a balanced mindset and a balanced approach. And then one of the things that I try to do in my own life is I surround myself with people that are more knowledgeable about things than myself. I usually will make it a habit not to be the smartest person in any room or any circle, including today. So that way I always consider myself a sponge, that I'm able to absorb and learn from others. So with the mindset of being the sponge, is that you're always, that success will come, and success will look different to everybody. So having the mindset that, okay, I can glean from this person who has greater financial success or has greater understanding in this particular area or that particular area, that has the understanding of entrepreneurship that I may not have. And also a lot of it, going back to the self-awareness, is unlearning some of the unhealthy habits that we've acquired through our childhood, maybe through some of the traumas from family, from friends, from our environment, and having the awareness to say, okay, this happened to me, but it has to be for my development and not my detriment. So having that ability to discern and say, all right, this was unhealthy, but now moving forward, what can I do that puts me in a more healthy space to be more successful, to be a better leader for the community, for my family, for those in close contact and those who I love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm gonna do an inception question and we'll get back to that one. But Dr. Knowles, I'm sure everybody else would say in here, panels, you are our answer to what I'm about to ask you. But being a high caliber and a big influence in the Black, not just the Black community, but across the globe, who do you look up to? I mean, not necessarily who, but is there somebody that you learn from? Because like we're still learning.
Oh, yeah.
I want people to understand we're still learning.
Well, I'm very grateful and blessed that I'm third generation entrepreneur. My grandfather, Dave Hogue, in Marion, Alabama, had 300 acres of land. And what my grandfather, Dave Hogue, did with that land is he parceled 100 acres that he sold to the paper mill. And the paper mill leased the land and cut off all the trees. My grandfather was a farmer and moonshine distributor. He would go behind where they cut off the trees and farm. And I used to say, that's genius. They paid you to clear your land so you can come behind them and farm. So without question, Dave Hogue, my grandfather, who spent a lot of quality time with me, has always been my inspiration. He's the first Black man I ever heard a white man call Mister. And I was fascinated. I was 5 years old, and the pride to hear these white men on a Saturday knock on the door and says, Mr. Hogue here. Well, they wanted some moonshine, and he had the good stuff. So they called him Mister. But all the things we're hearing about entrepreneurship, you know, it's about also decision making and being strategic. And you can't do that. And it goes back to mental health if your mental health is not in a great place. Because when you make emotional decisions, normally they're bad decisions. And we know we can get angry and make some emotional decisions sometimes. So I've learned through therapy and years of therapy how to control my emotions in decision making, how not to let those things that would be triggers for me, even in a conversation, they're not triggers anymore. So it's about what I've heard many say today. It's about knowledge, because knowledge is power. And you only get that. I encourage each and every one of you, if you haven't been to therapy, try it. The 10 years I went to a white therapist, and then I understood I was missing something. And I found a Black man in Dallas, Texas, a Black man who's now been my therapist. And for me, my therapist is part of my team. No different than my attorney and, you know, my doctor. My therapist is part of my team as well. So when I'm looking at entrepreneurship, that person's part of my team. And that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I think so. And I haven't even been looking at it that way. And I'm a mental health advocate. and I've been talking about team when it comes to business. You need your attorney, you need your accountant, you need all these people doing stuff to make it work. And if you're not where you need to be, you definitely do need that therapist to be a part of that team. I know we're short on time with you, Dr. Knowles, so I'm gonna switch gears to another question. You can start it and then we'll go to the other guys real quickly. I think you briefly touched on it, but just a quick thing about it. But would you say it is a lack of knowledge on Black mental health or neglect to care about Black mental health in our communities? And why do you think that is?
I don't think it's neglect. I think we haven't gotten all of the tools. We now in our Black communities, we seek out therapy from an informal way. I heard Brother Alexander, he's a barber. That's where a lot of informal therapy is done at the church. That's where it's done. Religion, talking to our family. We don't feel comfortable in the medical system, and there's a whole thing about the hit with government and the Congress about racism in the medical community. And a lot of it stems from the feeling of anxiety that we have, that we don't get the same treatment because they're not culturally responsive. The doctors and therapists that we call on, they're not culturally responsive, and they don't understand and embrace who we are. That's why I had to change from a white therapist and gratefully found a black man who understood me, who got me, who knew what I was going through. And a lot, quite frankly, for me, might not be for you, but for me, and ever since George Floyd, a lot of therapists, their client base have grown tremendously from black men, because we understand that thing that we have to go through every day, that a lot of our counterparts don't have to go through. I still have fear when I'm driving at night and a police gets behind me. No different than anyone else. So those are the things are for me. Hope I answered.
Yeah, you did. Absolutely. Do you think that the cultural responsive part is intentional now? Majority of intentional now, or is it still subliminal, cognitive? They don't understand, unconscious.
I think it's a combination of both. And there's research that's been done by a number of major hospitals and universities with white doctors, because typically when a black person goes to the emergency room, and by the way, a lot of black men go to the emergency room to seek out therapy. But when black folks go to the emergency room, we're dismissed quickly. We'll give it pills and we're gone, put out the emergency room. A white person goes in, they go through a series of tests. Well, we think Bob needs an MRI and a CT and lab work, comprehensive. We get dismissed quickly when we in the current medical system that we have.
I see that as well. Dismissed very quickly because for some reason we can handle pain better. Is what they say. We have a high tolerance. They say that in the world of giving birth. My wife's a doula, so I hear that a lot. Now, brothers, we're gonna switch to y'all for a couple. Do you think it is neglect, or it is just knowledge, or the lack of knowledge to care about our black men's mental health? Either one of you guys can join in, but about 5 minutes tops. Not you personally, but 5 minutes tops. We'll go to another breakout session.
I think it's, if I can jump in, I think it's a combination of things. It's not always just one thing. It's a blend of factors. It's blind spots that some of these healthcare professionals have. They don't know black culture, and they're not aware of the needs that we need specifically. And that's been the value in my life when I've gone through grief counseling and couples counseling and individual counseling. Somebody knew to the granular level what my needs were as a black man, and they knew how to navigate through that. Another component of that is, quite frankly, as we can see systemically, the world doesn't really value black lives. And this is no pun. From the president to Congress people, senators, law enforcement, what happened on January 6th is a microcosm of what's happening in this world. They don't care about their own, let alone black people. So that's why part of my mission is to spread the gospel of the benefit of therapy. We all have blind spots. Trauma and emotional deficiencies, man, it's like a weightless octopus on your shoulder just following you around throughout your life. And it has a tentacle in your romantic life. It has a tentacle in your business life. It has tentacles in different areas, and you don't know until you, like in my own instance, it's I didn't note the depth of the violent trauma that was spilling over into my life. But once I started addressing it and disrupting it, I increasingly saw the value. And that's why anybody who'll listen to me, I'll spread the gospel of my book that opened up my eyes to that empathy that I have for everybody that's on this panel for what they've gone through. And man, you just imagine how much better your life is going to be once you address that, and what bandwidth that's going to free up for you to do other things and have happy days, or just add days onto your life.
Or just pay attention. Just pay attention. That's the biggest thing. Carl, go ahead and jump in.
Okay. I would say that the best way to put it is this. Right now, currently, in this year, 2022, there are people who are studying how to approach us as Black men, how to approach Black people in general. So I think there is kind of like a miseducation on the part of everyone else on how to deal with certain situations in regards to Black men or Black people in general with their mental health. I'll give you an example. I'm gonna put my educator hat on for a second. We have school psychologists, school therapists, school counselors. We have like outside agencies that come in to help kids. We have what kids might go through, what we call a crisis moment. And every school has a crisis. Should schools have it as a crisis intervention team, which is put together to deal with certain situations, like when a child is in crisis, meaning that if a child is out of control, then that team comes in and kind of intervenes, whether it is restraints or anything of that nature. You're all trained on it. I myself personally am trained in restraining children if they're in a crisis mode, but that is not my first go-to. That is a nuclear option if that child is endangering itself or endangering the kids that surround it. So I say all that to say this. You might send in a counselor who is white. You might send in a therapist who is white. Say this child is African American. This child is going in a crisis mode. Again, it goes back to trauma. We don't know what the trigger is that set this child off. Here I am as a Black man, maybe in my particular school, one of 3 in that school. I can go into that room and talk to a child without restraining them, without using too many textbook words that they're not going to understand, too many techniques that they don't understand, and just talk to them. You know why? Because I'm a father, I'm an uncle, I'm a mentor. I deal with people all the time. I'm able to talk to that child in a manner in which I can meet them halfway. At the end of that, there's a resolution that I'm walking out of here with this child together, not in a restraint, not in anything that's going to put them in a more traumatic frame of mind, because I don't know if me putting this child in this room is something that's being done in their home. But the textbooks will tell you do X, Y, and Z. They're still studying how to deal with you. You understand? This is why we have equity meetings. This is why we have books being written. This is why we have book studies, because they're still trying to figure you out. So I think that it is important that we do have therapists that look like us. We do have counselors that look like us, that can meet these people halfway. This is what, so we got to figure in the sense where I'm looking at children, we're sending them out in the world with 0 skills and the same mentality. Now they're older and exposed to more. You know who deals with them from there? The police. So by then, once you're arrested, there is no real mental health. Who's getting mental health really in prison? You're just learning how to navigate. Right, so these are the things that we have to look at. So yes, I do think there's a little bit of ignorance on the part of those who are still trying to study us. They still have to figure us out.
Oh yeah, and absolutely, like you said, just for everybody here, no matter how important you think you are to society, we always have a target on our back as Black men. Just know that, and we're always watched. They're always making plans to bring us down, and you can take that how you want, conspiracy theorists or not. But I would like to say thank you, Dr. Mathew Knowles, for being here. Thank you for enlightening us with your thoughts and your experiences. The men in this world, through their journey of mental health, need the stuff that you're saying, need the stuff that need a role model, your role model, a father doing what he needs to do for his children, and a businessman doing what he needs to do, and a strong, healthy, maintaining mental health Black man showing that it can be done. And I do appreciate you. So for all of our audience, that was much better. I really appreciate y'all getting in on this conversation this time. We do have a third session coming up. So we're going to go back into our breakout rooms. I will be at my breakout room this time. I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye to Dr. Knowles. And without further ado, we'll take a break and we'll be right back with some more heavy questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Knowles.
Thank you, brothers.
Here.
We can hear you.
Okay.
All right, people, welcome back to The State of My Mental, a Black man's point of view, hosted by Mogul TV Global Network. So we lost Dr. Knowles, but we were lucky to have him here for the short amount of time, but he hit us with a lot of knowledge, a lot of experiences, and a lot of love. We did add on another brother to our panel, Troy Carroll. If he can, I think he's coming on now. You good to go, Troy? He's working on it. So we'll go.
I'm super good to go. Can you see me?
It is. He's super good to go now. So I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself to the people. Tell us why you're excited to, and then I have a question for you.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Troy Carroll. I'm America's #1 empowerment strategist, two-time best-selling author, certified life coach, as well as in human performance improvement and modern applied psychology with an emphasis on positive psychology. And I have the privilege of having the passion to be able to help people in the life space, the career space, and even the love space. And what makes this opportunity not just only enticing, but gratifying is the fact that we get to talk about the narrative of how mental illness or mental health can affect not just men, but men of color. And then last but not least, also to be able to kind of disrupt the propaganda and the false core beliefs on what the makeup and the mindset of a man happens to be, not only in this country, but also in the world abroad.
Nice. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming and being a part of this panel, even though you was a little shaky on the stuff, but it's all good. Air Meet is new to everybody, including our guests, our guests, and it actually is fun. I actually enjoy the platform once you get it. So the question for you, Troy, is what are some signs of a Black man in crisis? So we're asking this for some people that want to support men like us. We need to basically be able to identify a Black man in crisis. So what are some signs of a Black man in crisis?
One would be extreme silence and isolation, right? Some men are loners by nature, or some people overall are loners by nature. But when it goes off balance, when the equilibrium has been upset and we have an extreme amount of it, where people become taciturn and removed and detached, they seem as if they're not completely here, or as I've been hearing consistently throughout the event, present. That's when you'll notice that there's a possibility of crisis. Now, obviously, some of us can get quiet for a short period of time. All of us can become introspective to an extent. But for the most part, when that particular type of isolation or silence becomes too long, and then also turns into a bit of anger or extreme irritation at the smallest things, you can pretty much assure that there's going to be some form of crisis occurring.
Absolutely. Those are some signs that actually happen all the time. If you're a Black man, you hang around Black men, you see some of those signs a lot. And that's crazy to actually hear. And you've been passing those signs up as somebody that could have been, supportive. Carlton, what you got on there? What are some signs that you can see that a Black man's in crisis?
There we go. My microphone is slow. Yeah, motivation. The decline of motivation. We as men, some of us like to go to the gym, be social, whether if you're single, date, if you are in a relationship or married, date night, some of our motivations start to decline. And so that's another sign that you see where some of the things that we normally do full force, we're doing it now at half mass. And it's taking a toll on us mentally that's affecting our day-to-day and our physical portion of part of our lives. So I think that's one of the signs as well.
Agreed.
I like that. I'm actually asking everybody because this is something that needs to, I mean, there's so many different signs. I'm gonna ask everybody. Dr. Soares, you go, and then Mr. Ware, you said something, but I want to say it as well.
I think everyone would answer. I mean, there's a lot more, and I'm looking at the answers on the messages, and everyone's doing a really good job. I think one thing that I would say is extremism, and so and not just on the low end, but also the high end too. And so look out for brothers who are like we talked about before, isolated, don't want to be bothered. I'm one of those people when I'm really depressed or anxious or whatever. I don't want to be bothered with the world, right? And so look for those kind of people. Also look for the opposite as well, the opposite extreme. Look for those people who are engaged and then everyone's like doing everything and they're a little too much, right? And so I think that's something I would add to. Other than what I added to, I think that's something else as well. And substance abuse is another thing. Look for moderation and everything like that. And so I'll stop there because I want to hear from the other brothers, but that's just something I would say.
We'll go down the line. Appreciate you, Doctor. Carl, what you got? What kind of symptoms do you see?
Well, I would say looking at a person's overall appearance. Sometimes when you get caught up in that funk, you kind of lose yourself. If you ever hear people give that term that you're a shell of your former self, that former self could have been someone that was sharp, dressed sharp, thinking sharp. But then it's like when your overall appearance changes, mentally, you're going to change as well. So I look out for signs like that. Sometimes too and it's a sign that a lot of people don't look at, is people who dwell in the past a lot. When you see a lot of people dwell on the negative situations that happened in the past, it can be years ago, but it seems like that thing always surfaces up in the conversation, or, I look at that also as a cry for help, because you seem like you're just stuck in that one particular area in your life and you can't let go of it. Also too is, like a lot of the brothers said, a disconnect. When you kind of see that you're moving yourself away from your loved ones, you're moving yourself away from your friends. Well, I would say you can separate yourself from your friends' reasons, but when you see like you look like you're moving yourself away from family, when you kind of not wanting to be around too many people, those are the things that I kind of look at. It's various things, but those are the two that came to my mind at this moment.
Absolutely. And one of our guys, DeAndre Ponce, he says anger is the only emotion you see, and that's not necessarily just anger, but isolated emotions. It's definitely one of the signs. It's only sad, only angry, only happy, because happy can be a facade as well. People don't understand that is when a person is always in your face. Sometimes they're crying for help, just in different ways. Deacon Brandon Pumphrey, what you got? What kind of signs do you see in the church?
I heard someone say this before: extremism. So if somebody, kind of to your point that you just made, Mars, if you see extremely happy or extremely sad, oftentimes people that are stuck in the past from a traumatic event that may have happened years ago, and they continue, as Brother Carl hit on, that they continue to rehash that event, and it could be 5-10 years later, understanding that grief has no timeline, but constantly bringing that back up. But just those extremisms, and again, the word that I used earlier, that imbalance. Now, that balance, the way we show up as balance, is going to look different for all of us. But when you see the imbalance in some of the behaviors that result from imbalance, that could be substance abuse or drug abuse or residual behavior, some type of illegal behavior, compulsive behavior. So a lot of those imbalanced behaviors that I've heard Bishop T.D. Jakes say, imbalance is the root of dysfunction. So really that the imbalance and the impulsive behaviors are things that I would see.
Yep. G, I know you wrote it in the comments, but can you go ahead and say what you were thinking?
Yeah, just another one I was thinking about is clinginess. I know it's been my experience with folks that they kind of latch on to you as a form of a safety net sometimes, and they may not be sharing it, but sometimes that's them, non-verbally showing you or telling you that they're dealing with some mental issues.
If I could just add to that
Dependency,
exact statement,
right?
it's called trauma bonding.
Trauma bonding, that's the more appropriate term. You're right.
They become dependent. They're dependent kind of person. They depend on somebody else for their behavior, for their ideas, for the way they move, all of it. And that is definitely a man in crisis for sure. We had Kaliid. It's up to you now. And then a couple of signs you guys see. I know a lot of people are hitting on them, but there are a lot of signs that people miss.
Yeah, I think a lot of us, we're saying different variations because it's true. But sometimes, man, when I'm trying to figure something out, I go back to the basics and I ask myself fundamentally, is this the person that I know? Like, are they departing? Is an otherwise rational person now irrational? Is a person who's energetic now deplete of energy? And and just like to get some context, like I've known people who had drug addiction problems or who didn't have drug addiction problems, but now have substance abuse issues and alcohol and whatnot. And yeah, it just really, when the person it isn't the person anymore. And to that, I think it's good when we have that observation, we just go, are you doing okay? What's up with you? Like, how's things going? And what can I do to support you? But but bringing it back, man, is when the person ain't there no more. That's a sign sometimes.
That's true. That's true. Absolutely. And I just real quick let me ask you something on that. How do you know? Because this is important. Because that statement right there is one of the biggest things. No one's noticing somebody changing. But when is it when they're growing up, like growing in themselves and they change, or when is it a crisis? How can you tell the difference?
How can you tell the difference? Well, it's an easier read for me when I've known a friend 10, 20 years. Like, okay, like I have some precedents. I have, there's patterns that I've noticed. But I think when you are dealing with somebody you may not know as intimately, then you have to start tactfully asking questions, to fill in some gaps. Because it's a difference of, sometimes I say, are you having a bad day or are you having a bad period? Is this something been going on for weeks or months? So simply, if you know a person well enough, then you know that he or she may come out of it. Or when we're talking about men, it's like, if it's somebody you don't know that well and you don't want to be too intrusive, I'd rather you be upset with me for caring, being there for you. So I'll take a shot down the field to the end of digging you out of whatever despair you may be in. But let me just say this, man, that applies to us too. If you don't recognize you for who you usually are, then that's a sign of yourself
that you're in crisis.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a centering moment. It definitely brings, like you said, you're going to dig into that support. You're going to be present in your support by asking the questions. Is it, like you said, is it a bad now, or is it a bad, multiple things, or it's ongoing? Yeah. And Brother Walker and then Brother Mitchell, some signs, quick little signs. I'm pretty sure we got them all, but I want to get y'all in here on the signs that may possibly something different.
One of the things that I wanted to touch on was, especially dealing with the younger people, what they listen to and what they take in, the type of music they listen to. Because if it's always, say, I don't know if everybody's familiar, but say if it's always NBA Youngboy, like his music is really dark. you got to listen and know who they're listening to and the type of things they're looking at online, because you can go online and see these things where people are saying, wait, thank you for helping me make it through this thing. But the whole time they're talking about blowing somebody's brains out. Like it's a reason why they're listening to these people and going into these people more than they're going within themselves and the people around them in real life. They're speaking to a part of themselves that they don't know how to acknowledge. And a lot of times we push that to the wayside, like, oh, it's just entertainment. But sometimes they're using that as a coping mechanism.
Somebody had a question real quick. It was Omar Rashad. What role, if any, does racism play in regards to Black men's mental health? I'll have Anthony answer that question. What role, if any, does racism play in regards to Black men and mental health?
It plays to me, growing up in the Deep South and seeing the KKK actually march to my city's capital and seeing prevalent racism throughout, and even seeing it now, it plays a huge part in our mental health. I mean, look at George Floyd. Look at all of the police killings. You cannot tell me that most of those Black police killings are not racially motivated. Just like Dr. Knowles said, whenever the police are behind me when I'm driving, I'm automatically gripping the steering wheel. Even to this day, I've even had personal experiences with the police where I was told, go home, don't go back out. If you come back out and we catch you again, something worse is going to happen to you. So my experience through racism definitely has played a part in my mental aspect. And unfortunately, having 3 sons, I've had to have that cop interaction conversation with them, you know, and I know for a fact that has affected them as well growing up. So it's definitely play a huge part for us, you know, and Dr. Knowles pointed out, that's why it's so important to have Black representation in the mental health space so that we can identify and go and talk to them about concerns that they truly understand where we're coming from. And one trait that I just wanted to identify real quickly in regards to a man that's in mental crisis is indecisiveness. I can remember in 2019, I was in my greatest mental crisis that I've ever been in. It seemed like everything, I was isolated. I had all the check marks, isolated, anger, you know, sensitivity to everything. But I couldn't make a decision to save my life. And it affected not only my family, it affected me professionally. And I had to really get help in order to just make a basic decision on what I'm going to eat for the day. That's how bad it was for me. So definitely look for that. If a man has a clear vision, he knows exactly what he wants to do, and all of a sudden he can't make up his mind on what direction he's going in, or he seems lost, that brother's in trouble.
Yeah, indecisiveness. I never even really thought about that. I'm gonna get to Kevon's question or his answer in a second. But yeah, that right there is the extremes. The both sides of extremes. You either are very impulsive or you're very indecisive. And I've noticed that as well when I'm in crisis. I just can't. I'm like, I usually make decisions. You know what I mean? And it could be the smallest thing. And Kevon said that, I don't know, somebody tech person, bring it back up. There it is. Sometimes you have to seemingly be nosy in a sense for brothers we know or think we are expecting them or experiencing the crisis. And that was what Brother Kaliid was saying. You have to, because you never know if they're having those suicidal thoughts or some way that you can support them. But like he said, you have to be that person that can be just blindly wrong and be like, oh, well, my bad, bro. I'm just here to support. You know what I mean? It's okay to be wrong if somebody's having a crisis. You know what I mean? Because if they aren't, it's cool. But if they are, then you're there, and you know, basically alleviated a missed opportunity. Troy, what role does racism play in Black man's mental health?
That's a heavy one, and it's not just racism. So we also have to include unconscious bias. and false core narratives, right? Because a lot of those things are taught in school and in our neighborhoods. And I grew up in Northwest Baltimore. It was predominantly an all-black neighborhood, all-black homeowners, a gas station, the record store when we had records, ice cream parlor, you name it. And unfortunately, what happens in a society where it's easier to tell a narrative versus face the truth is that you end up not being able to truly and fully discuss how you look at people who are different than you. So from a mental health perspective, that becomes a weight on your shoulders. And I think it was Imani who described it as a octopus with tentacles throughout your entire life. But I'm not going to even say it's weightless. It's a heavy weight. There was this movie a long time ago, and I think it was called The Photograph or something like that. It was a horror movie. And at the end of the movie, this guy kept complaining about back pain and neck pain. But when they took a picture of him, he had this figure sitting on his shoulders. In a sense, that's how racism impacts us. It kind of bends us over. It presses us down. And then in an effort to go against that pressure, we push hard the opposite direction. So what does that then result in? We're now going full force, out of equilibrium, out of balance towards everything in our life without any measure of control or intention. Our thought process was just to get the monkey off our back, but we don't really understand that it's a monkey in the first place. It is both racism. It is a lack of equity. It's a lack of equality, true equality. It's a lack of inclusion. That's to suppress and repress all these things that are happening. We don't realize it because we can't see it sitting on our shoulders.
Yes. And I'm glad you made light to that analogy. Sometimes it's weightless, sometimes it's very, very, very heavy, but regardless of how much weight is on you, how much you feel it or not, those tentacles are still there. Those tentacles are still there throughout your life, and it is affecting you. And one thing that you touched on was how people basically, when they dislike something, they're not going to let me explain something. If I don't cars, I will never buy a red car. If I see a red car, my mindset is that is ugly. It's not an ugly car. That's we have to get out of this mindset when we don't understand something or we don't like something, that it's the extreme, it's the opposite, that it's ugly, trash, or wrong. You see this all the time in our entertainment.
Here's the thing, though. In Six Sigma, they have this thing called the 5 whys. And what you do is you keep asking why till you get to the actual answer. Sometimes when we say we don't like something, we don't even know why we don't like it. How many people have not liked something because someone else didn't like it? Do you remember when you were growing up and one of your friends would say, I don't like so-and-so, and neither did you. You don't like them, I don't like them. Right? So a lot of this is learned behavior. Like the majority of us, for everything that we do, we've learned it from someplace else, right? First from your parents, television, music, then your peers, your environment. You go to school. When I was growing up, I loved Christopher Columbus and George Washington. I loved these people. I had a doll when I was a kid. I had a doll of these people who actually committed atrocities, right? It was learned behavior. How was I supposed to know? And then I didn't like what other people didn't like. I didn't even know why. I didn't ask why I didn't like it, what about it bothered me, what things, and you know, what differences or nuances, like how many different types of red are there, right? What kind of red card don't you like? Is it dark red, fire engine red, candy apple red? It's asking the why to truly understand that I learned this from someone else, that I adopted. Am I being my authentic self? Have I discovered myself, my who in me? If I have not, then there's no way in the world for me to know what I actually like. And that includes people. That includes people. I've lived in California, and my cousin grew up, he was a terribly racist person. I'll tell you up front, he's a terribly racist person. He didn't like Latinos. Well, the only stories I had for him were bad stories about Latinos. So what happened when I first came across Latinos? I didn't like them based off of the narrative that he provided, even though I had no negative experiences with them. You have to ask the why.
You do. And you did have negative experiences with them because the person that basically presented them to you had negative experiences first.
Right.
So you had indirect experience, and that's what people don't understand is we get all these indirect experiences from our parents, our parental figures, the people we decide we want to hang around, the entertainment business. So we get these we have the mindset that Latinos are bad or red cars are ugly, and you're absolutely right. Deacon Pumphrey, what about racism?
I wanted to, with this question, this one hits home for me as an African American who, like Dr. Knowles, I grew up all the way from kindergarten through college. I went to predominantly white educational institutions. So I was constantly confronted with a lot of these misconceptions on a day-to-day basis. I can even recall in college, I would have some of my white counterparts coming up to me and speaking to me in what they assumed as quote unquote Black vernacular. For instance, trying to speak in that fashion, and they would be like, "What up, homie?" This, that, and I would respond, "Oh, good morning, good afternoon," and they would almost look flabbergasted and shocked. I'm speaking English, so what's the misconception? And I was of the mindset, especially once I got to college, I'm here to learn. So help me understand what is it that you don't, that the disconnect here when I'm speaking English. But coming up, I can recall like child confrontations with the Ku Klux Klan, walking my dog as a child, coming across gentlemen who threatened my life when I'm doing something as simple as walking my dog because my parents told me to at 9, 10 years old. Many instances coming through middle and high school, being excluded from activities, going to parties and being excluded, situations that affected my dating life as a teenager. And it got to the point where teenage through 20 years, it jeopardizes and messes with your identity as a man. You're wondering, where do I fit into the stem of society? And it wasn't until counseling in my 20s and 30s to be able to find that sense of self and find my own niche. So understanding, and then with racism, oftentimes communicated, the message from my parents was you got to work twice as hard to get half as far. So that's where that monkey comes from, where you're climbing up the hill, and you feel like you get to the top or the carrot's there, but the carrot is constantly moved. That, okay, the carrot's here. Now the carrot's moved another 300 feet. I got to keep on going. The rules, and so it seemed as though the rules are always changing. So that messes with your mental state because you're thinking, okay, I've quote unquote achieved, I've quote unquote made it, but what has made it and the rules that made it are constantly changing.
Absolutely. Always changing. And it will always continuously change, no matter when we think we have our freedom or not. So, Dr. Soares, they say fairer skin. I don't know why they say that. That doesn't even sound proper. But a fair skin, brother, how has racism affected mental health in your eyes?
It's funny. Yes, I am fair skin, light skin. I think it's an important topic. It's funny because it's taboo, right? When we talk about this, I mean, darker skinned brothers might not want to say to someone like me, or a light skinned brother might not want to say someone who's a darker skinned brother. You look, about this topic. I guess I'm saying, and I mean, I've been at places. I worked at Morehouse College, right? And all Black males, and they thought it was Latinx. And probably most of you thought it was Latinx when I first got on, when you first met me, right? Puerto Rican or Hispanic or whatever the case is. But I think it's intersectionality, right? And I think it's something that we have to look at is when I look at how I got here, where I am today, my family was a part of the slave trade, right? My ancestors. And so there was a lot of mixing going on. And we were owned by the Portuguese, which makes a lot of sense why I'm so fair skinned, right? But they were mixing with a lot of Africans and so on and so forth. And so I think, to answer the question, I think a lot of colorism. I don't know if everyone's familiar with the paper brown bag test, but that's something I get all the time. I'm in a fraternity and I get that all the time, or my friends mean say, oh yeah, you must have been in a slave house with your family because you were light skinned, where we were out in the fields getting cotton and stuff, So I think there's that too. And I think this relates to Black females a lot. where they're bleaching their skin, or they're all darkening or whatever,
or men too. We got Barry Bonds.
Yeah, that's
Sammy
right.
Sosa.
That's right. Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah,
so,
Sammy Sosa.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Barry.
yeah, Sammy Sosa, right? Sammy Sosa, yeah. And so I think one thing is, I have to become to who I am, right? And I have to accept who I am, right? And I'm very spiritual, like a lot of people said, and I feel like a higher being, God put me on this earth to be who He wants me to be, and that's how I'm gonna, serve Him and serve the world I live in. So I can't worry about what social media says about me, about how light skinned I am, or how dark skinned someone else is, or this and that, because at the end of the day, and I know people don't say colorblind. I'm not talking about colorblind. I'm talking about people's humanity, people's heart. That's what we need to worry about, and that's what mental health is. We're here to support each other through humanity, And so I feel like if we start doing that and not look at people's color of the skin, light skin, dark skin, middle skin, or whatever, I think that will be very important, And so I'll stop there, but hopefully I answered, but that's how I look.
You did very well, and that's why I wanted to ask, you, because that's one thing, because it doesn't really matter. It really does not matter if you're light skinned or darker. You know what I mean? It really doesn't matter. You're gonna get that inside mental health kind of trauma, because for me, I'm a twin, and my twin is either Troy's color or G's color or Deacon Pumphrey's color, somewhere in there. And I say all three of you because we're all different shades. We're all different shades. Right. But I went to school in Atlanta, and I was the white twin, right?
Wow.
But being a military brat, I was able to move around, and I was able to see people's reaction to me and my brother. Always. I was at if anybody knows Virginia, there's a place called Strasburg, and I call them the Mountain Boys because they the Mountain Boys, right? I'm there for a wrestling match. Well, black folks shouldn't be wrestling anyways, right? But we're so good at everything, right? But I'm over there at a wrestling match, and the ladies are at the concession stand. We getting a snack. They're turned back, and they're talking to each other. My brother says, "Hey, excuse me, can we get something from the stand?" Lady turns around. She's like, kind of like what Deacon Pumphrey said. She's like, "Oh my God, if I would have kept my eyes closed, I would have sworn you were white." Now, I was in high school and I was sheltered, fortunately, but I knew there was something wrong. But if I had the same mindset, there might have been some choice words. But that's the stuff you get, even, whether you're dark or light, and then you get the inside stuff as well when you're darker or lighter. And racism and colorism is alive and well, no matter what race you are, and that is true black on crime. But that I think mentally,
it's also a lack of knowledge, right, Mars?
Yeah.
I took physical anthropology in college. One of the first things that I learned was that the black race in of itself is the most diverse race on the entire face of this planet. Okay, so you're gonna have fair-skinned people, right? My grandfather was half Italian, but I'm dark-skinned. If I play hide and go seek at night and close my eyes and don't smile, you're not finding me. But growing up in the 70s, dark skin was not in. But not until Wesley Snipes, right? It took New Jack City to put me in style. But we have a misconception about melanin and even the types of melanin, right? There are several types of melanin, and we don't teach this information. There's a reason behind that. That's what we have to touch upon. Colorism didn't just naturally happen. It's not a naturally occurring thing. You don't see two dogs outside like, "Hey, look at the brown dog. I'm not going to hang out with him. He's not as cute as me. I'm white and fluffy." That doesn't happen. So much like the lack of equity, much like the lack of inclusion, much like racism, all these things are not naturally occurring. They were created. Look at Disney. Look at movies. It doesn't mean it's better or worse, but you're going to have diversity. Representation, right? You won't have representation because it's a form of isolation and exclusion. It's both conscious and unconscious. For those who are in the predominance of power, they can say, "I like this red car. I like this red car better. So therefore, I'm going to populate every video I do, every billboard that I have with this red car. But I like blue cars. And someone else likes white cars, right? And Carl, he likes beige cars. I don't know who likes beige cars, but Carl likes his beige card.
You hit the nail on the head too, Troy. No, I'm just playing.
I think that we have to have every single thing every single time. But we do have to remember, right? Much like a bag of Skittles. If you got a bag of Skittles or M&Ms, you don't want all the brown ones or all the red ones or all the blue ones. You like to enjoy the differences, even though they all taste the same. But you just enjoy the color. So being colorblind, I hate when people say, I don't see color. Then you don't, am I invisible? If I've turned invisible, let me know. I'll join the X-Men and maybe make some part-time work. But until then, I want you to see me and appreciate what you see.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that note, it's called it's marketing box mentality, so that you believe that the only thing you want to buy is that red car. And people don't understand that. So we'll switch gears, and you guys, that one right there, racism. I appreciate whoever I forget, Kevon, I think it was Kevon. Thank you for that question. Oh, Omar, thank you for that question. I really do appreciate that question. That's the stuff I like to be interactive, because we are here. We're talking about a bunch of different things. But we have these other people that are watching us, trying to support us, and they have questions too. And heavy hitters like that definitely help out. We're gonna have about maybe 10 more minutes to this, because it's almost getting to 1. And I'm gonna give probably one more question. Or 2. I'll do 2 questions. I'll half it. I'm going to do half of you guys for one of the questions and half for the next question. So the first one is going to be, and I want Brother Kaliid to start with this one, because this is his question. What blind spots need to be addressed from Black women and others in supporting Black men?
Yeah. Like, I'm gonna shorten this because I don't want to get too wordy. Like, for women, you have to understand, and I've said this time and time again, Black men are the foundation and connective tissue to happiness. And saying that is not a knock on women, because your presence in our lives is crucial to our happiness and survival. So let me get that out the way. You have to understand that, like, it's strong on the real, I'm the toughest person I know emotionally. I don't know another mentally tougher guy, but I have my days where I'm not at my height, and I'm not feeling like a god the way I'm feeling right now. You have to understand that in those moments, we are not going to be at our best, and we need support. And what support looks like is understanding, listening, and sometimes leaving us alone. And that's also to say that me or any other Black man having those moments where we're flying at a lower altitude, it's not that we're weak. It's not that we're less. And a lot of us have been socialized to suppress our emotions and our verbal skills. So yeah, man, I mean, it's like you have to understand that. You have to understand, like, different men are going to fall on different places of the spectrum, but you have to talk to us with a sense of empathy, not sympathy, empathy. Like, try to understand where I'm coming from. Understand that when I'm out in the world, in this country, on a racial system that is converging on us from so many different angles, like me coming from the corporate world, law enforcement, the financial institution, like, understand that there's a lot that you don't know, because there's a lot that we don't know collectively as men. And it's not always a sense of us withholding ourselves from you. It's just all coming back to our own lack of self-awareness and our own blind spots. But the path to getting to a better place is just having good faith conversations, like talking to understand, not talking to win an argument.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Absolutely. Those are all good tips, because the blind spots is like the gray areas in life. You don't understand them. You just don't understand them. If you don't know they're there, you just don't know they're there. Right. But in support, like I said, we're asking this for supporters. This is supporters, people willing. Right. And G, you put something down, but I want you to talk. You're coming up next to talk. The blind spots need to be told they're there. And then we need more supporters to come in and fill those blind spots with different peace, love, and different energy that the person in crisis has never seen before. G.
Yeah. And one more thing, like it's like for me, it's like the moment that I know that you coming to me with clean hands, I'm opening up. I'll be vulnerable. I'll share as much as I can at that given time. But conversely, if you're coming at a black man with wagging your finger, if you're coming at us with the, you coming in hot, your tone is ill, then we just shut down. So I say that to say it's a two-way street, but just something to consider. And the last thing I'll say with that is wherever you're at, man, like with your understanding or your communication in a relationship, just play the long game. You're not going to get a home run on the first pitch or the second pitch or the third pitch. You really got to play the long game and developing a good enough rapport with your man or your brother or your father, whatever, to get to that higher place of understanding. I'll pass it to the rest of y'all.
Appreciate you. G.
Sir and Brother Kaliid, that was awesome, man. Thanks for that input. I heard you talk. I don't know if you used the word understanding, but I think that was the part of the message. And in my comments, I put there was an old book that's titled "Men Are from Mars and Women Are from Venus," and essentially it's just understanding that we're wired differently. And
yes,
and not to get too spiritual, but in the Christian faith or Judaism, it talks about in the beginning that God said it wasn't good that man should be alone. I will make a helper that's suitable. So that was not to sound sexist or misogynistic or anything, but we've gotten away from this idea that there are roles in our society that we are built for. And I think that when we act like that's not the case, that we don't take into full context that, again, we are built differently, designed differently for a purpose. And I think if we put more work in understanding each other, and specifically for this question, if women understood that we are built differently and there's a purpose behind that, and understanding what that difference is, it'll go a long way.
Well said, G. Well said. Understanding, no matter how you do it, understanding is you have to communicate to understand. There's just no other way. There's no other way. Brother Walker, you up next, and then we'll go to Carlton since you got smacked off, and then what we'll do is we'll do parting remarks.
Okay. One of the major things I would like to add to it, because most of the things that I want to say have been said already, I will say that to understand not to box us in, because every man is not the same. Every man has different experiences in the way he's went about life, and the traumas that he's experienced have put him in a different space on the inside to how he operates outwardly. So to go back and say that on what I know as a man to be and put that on the man that you're with puts him in a place of almost having to withdraw, wanting to withdraw, because he's like, well, now I'm not enough. Now I don't know what to do. When in actuality, he does know what to do. He just knows what to do as who he is as a man instead of who they are perceiving him to be. So it has to be a space for him to operate in that, to be himself and not be whatever box you have or whatever experience you have to make him that.
Well said. Well said. But we are not your trauma is basically what it is. I am not what you've been through. You just met me. That's why we're together now. If I was your past trauma, we probably would not be together. Right. So that's definitely a good, not box all men or people or humans together. We all are unique vessels. Tony said, let me see if I can read it. Where to go? women allowing us to actually speak without interrupting can help men be more transparent and alleviate shutting down. Thanks, Tony, because that's definitely one of the things as well. That's a form of boxing us in. Carlton, you got any for? Oh yeah, I know your mic take forever. I'll wait 5 minutes.
There we go.
You got the question, or you need,
yes.
you need it again?
Yes, please.
Okay, so basically, what blind spots need to be addressed from Black women and or to help support Black men?
Yes. So everything everyone said has been amazing. I just want to say that, and I agree with everything. And just to add my little spill, I know for me, and we all can agree, when it comes to our women and our sisters, our mothers, our wives, girlfriends, whatever capacity, we want to be able to be ourselves, our authentic selves, and be able to express ourselves fully without that, our feelings being weaponized and used against us 2 weeks later, 2 months later, 2 years later, 22 years later. We just want to be able to express ourselves. We go through so much. We all go through so much. And I think we as men, we are like the rock. You know, when our women are going through things, we have to listen. We have to be understanding to their feelings and the things that they go through. But when it's our turn, a lot of times we don't get that rock, that solid foundation to really lean on. So I think that's important, is to just have, someone's mentioned earlier, a safe space to express ourselves and not have it be weaponized against us later on. So, yeah.
Weaponization of that, of any vulnerable moment is the death of vulnerable moments. And I agree to that, especially for men. Jesse said women have to understand that men are born to lead, and Kaliid said something about this, the backbone and stuff. It has no dig to women. What it is just knowing your place. Everybody has a place. It's the same thing as we're men. But it's the same thing as sports. You have a quarterback, have a running back. You have, right? And so when the running back says, no, let me hold that junk and throw it, you're going to be like, no, man, that's not your job. You understand? And so the running back has to understand that when I get the ball, I run. So when you're a woman, you do what, there's no box on how to be a woman. You be you. You be a woman. It's the exact same way, knowing our role. Troy, look, all right, you can say what you got to say, but then after you say what you got to say, we're going to shut this down. Tell everybody where they can find you after this. Everybody, after Troy goes, tell where people can find you.
Quick thing, just on some of the things you said. There's a term called toxic masculinity. I'm going to also add into that toxic femininity. Okay, I'm a disruptor, so somebody's not going to like what I'm going to say. I'll ruffle a few feathers and shake the bushes. All right. And what I mean by that is that often we are seen through the lens from a female perspective, being the definition of a man. You cannot define what you are not. It does not mean that you cannot define what you want or tend to have in your life, but you can't tell a man how to be a man. I was raised by a single mother, so don't get it twisted. I love my queens. What I am saying is that that's why it's imperative and important to have a strong male figure, a strong, upstanding male figure in your life to teach your child the opposite end of the polar spectrum. Okay. Another thing we use a lot, we hear these words, misogyny. They throw it around. It means you hate women. It doesn't mean that we don't think you're equal. It means, and I don't think any of us hate women, but often, unfortunately, information from social media and throwing it out there, it becomes a matter of what they are. Words have weight. Accountability, being accountable for how you treat someone else. Men have a love language. It's not like theirs. That's the blind spot. They have to understand both our language and our dialect. Men have to also take some accountability. We have to manage our urges, just like women have to manage their emotions. And I think that red flags. I hate that new term because what we've changed red flags to is things that we refuse to compromise on. I'm not going to settle. What you mean you're not going to compromise? That's a blind spot, because when you're down, it's not really a red flag. It's him asking for help. That is the crisis that you spoke to or spoke about earlier.
Thank you, Troy. I'm going to send it back to you in a second. But yes, what he just said, and I'm going to leave y'all with that. What he just said, that people are learning what they think they know about people based off a box or their own experiences. And what you're telling me is there going to be a whole lot of single women in these next generations, because they're not understanding, and that's okay to me, but we do have to respect and control our urges, like you said. Yep. And another thing was that I have never, and I'm gonna say this because you're right, these new terms coming up, toxic masculinity, I hear it all the time now, but toxic femininity, I don't see it. And you're absolutely right. I appreciate you. So I'm sending it back to you, Troy. And first of all, I would like to thank everybody for tuning in. This is our first, the state of my mental and Black men's POV, and able to do this. I'm glad that we were able to have a free space. I'm glad that people came and joined in. I'm actually glad women were here, because we need their perspective. They need our perspective in a free space kind of scenario. This is recorded, so other people will be able to see it. So people on the panelists, people that are guests, please go ahead and send links and stuff like that, because this is important. And we will continue to have these talks. I know I have my platform, and I'm sure these brothers have theirs, and we will collab again. Trust me that I'll be reaching out to these fellas. So I'm going to start with Troy. And what I want you guys to do, tell people where they can find you. Tell people what you're doing, and then partner remarks on what we had today and basically what you plan on doing to help break these stigmas.
All right. So as far as what's forthcoming, I'm partnering with I Dominate magazine. So I have my 4th article that will be released in the next 30 days or so. I'm working on some additional events in my next novel. So that should be coming out within the next 3 months as well. You can look for that coming up. You can see those upcoming events on my website, which is www.insideoutevo.com. www.insideoutevo, all one word, .com. I typically post also every week for any motivational musings and blog. That's also listed on my website, as well as Instagram under InsideOut_evolution and Facebook Inside Out Evolution. You're on mute.
Told you, I've been doing good this whole time. I had one job. Jeremy,
on every platform, I'm Soul Brother J. I'm working on my first podcast episode for Juju Weekly. It's a podcast centered towards spirituality in the hoodoo sense. I'm also giving out readings and spiritual counseling for other people, that especially young Black men who are in search of learning their spiritual gifts, because we are, and a lot of people tend to forget that or not know the fact that we have more to offer than just what we can do with our hands. Also, I'm also learning right now, not learning, but right now I'm in the process of becoming an Ifa priest. So there's going to be something developing there. And that's an African traditional religion for those that don't know. I'm also working on my own thing on Twitter. Is a prophetic seers community called Strange University, and it's centered around the dimension jumping from Doctor Strange. And also I have something on Instagram known as Juju Weekly, where I give hoodoo stories and herbalism advice and tools that you can do with herbs and roots. And that's it for me.
Appreciate you. Thank you for having you, Brother Walker. Dr. Soares.
Excuse me. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone, the brothers on the panel, and for the audience to be here. Very powerful discussion on a Saturday. Appreciate you all. I don't have a website. I'm actually in the process of creating one. So The best way to connect with me is through Instagram, Facebook, or whatever. You probably LinkedIn is probably the best way, and just take the doc down, put Franklin Soares, and you should find me on there. You also can, I do a lot of publications through mental health. So if you look for my name, you'll see a lot of articles that I do, peer review articles, as we talked about before. So, just hit me up. I look forward to continuing this discussion. I know one thing that I got from this discussion is I have a lot to give to the world. And so I am most likely from this discussion going to start doing a podcast myself. So thank you, brothers, for everyone who was on the panel for inspiring me to do that. I think our story needs to go further. And so I'm definitely going to do that. Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate you, Doctor. Tony.
All right. Thank you so much, brothers, for this is great conversation. What we got going on right now for our NIAS project is we launched our men's program. Brandon and myself, we actually did a live 2 weeks ago. We're also going to plan on doing our first support group for the men's grief haven. That's going to be in August. So take a look at that information. You can follow us on Facebook, Anias Project. We're also on Instagram and on LinkedIn. Also, if you want to just follow me, I'm A Mitchell 1106. So you can reach out to me individually. And we got some more stuff that's coming for the men as we plan out, flesh out our program towards the end of this year. And we're actually going to start planning on doing a lot starting next year. We're going to definitely work with Tamika because Tamika is part of our board as well to see if we could get a podcast going as well. So, you guys inspired me. At first, I was like, we could probably hold up on the podcast. But now I'm just like, nah, let's go ahead and get this thing rolling. So we definitely, I thank you guys for the inspiration on that one. So definitely check us out. Also, you could go to our website, Anias Project, ANAYAS Project, all one word.org. Check out what we're doing. We got a walk that's coming later on this year in September. So if you want to participate that or you want to do it virtually, you're more than free to do so. So that's all that I have.
Thanks, Tony. It was great having you as well. Carl, Jerard.
Hey, guys. All right. Again, I'm the host of the Only One Mic podcast. You can reach us on Instagram and Twitter at the Only One Mic P1, Facebook and LinkedIn at the Only One Mic podcast. Also, we have a YouTube channel where you can catch up on our interviews that we've done, the past, current things that we have going on. You can lost the train of thought. You can catch us there at YouTube. Also, you can email me directly, fellas, or anybody that's listening. The Only One Mic podcast 00@gmail.com. Now, listen, my show is dedicated to doing stuff like this. Also, any community activists, anybody that's doing things that's positive in the community, definitely reach out, fellas. All my information is out there. Follow us on the social media platforms. Like and subscribe to the show. Get on there and check out some of these people that's doing the same things that we're doing. Conversations. I also want to say that I took away from this a lot of great information from a lot of good brothers. Somebody put in the comments that iron sharpens iron. That's something that I always say. So I'm glad that somebody said it. As for me, the only thing that I can do to try to break the stigma is to, do my self-check every now and again. Make sure that I'm walking and moving the right way, thinking the right way, and be the example to someone that's watching you, either directly or indirectly, even if they don't know you, that they see you and they see that you're doing something positive and moving right. So I just want to thank you, brothers, for the opportunity, and for Mogul TV, Ms. Tamika, for giving us the shot.
Thank you, Carl, for being here. That's the biggest thing, you being here and spreading that knowledge. Appreciate you for that. Deacon Pumphrey.
Yeah, thank you, brothers, and thank you, Tamika and Mogul TV, for having us this morning into afternoon and for us having this discussion. And for me, my focus is simply on everything that Tony said, where I'm partnering with him within a NIAS project and specifically the Men's Grief Haven. That's something that I'm passionate and excited about. And what excited me about this platform today is the empowerment and embetterment of Black men, because we are that link to the improvement and the sustainment of our community as a whole. And so from a standpoint for me personally, you could find me, I'm on Facebook and Twitter. Those are my only current platforms I'm on from a personal perspective, but my focus is more on what's outside of me and what I'm pouring back into the earth. And I saw someone mention, and I did watch a sermon about T.D. Jakes had a recent Father's Day sermon about men poor. And so my focus is on what am I pouring into the earth and not what I'm taking from the earth. So I'm excited about what I as an individual and what we as a collective can continue to do to pour into the earth for the empowerment of those coming behind us and those that are ahead of us and those that currently exist, and just being able to uplift and encourage one another. And thank you.
Appreciate you, Deacon. Thank you for your knowledge, and thank you for the want to come and support. Imani Kaliid.
Oh, so soon?
Yes, sir.
Mars, you did a good job moderating. Thank you, man.
Appreciate that. It ain't over yet.
And to the fellas, man, you guys have all, and the audience, people in the chat, you guys have added color to my day, and it won't top it. Nothing else will. With me, you can, if you want to check out my book, which is a great book, www.therewasviolence.com. You can Google me, Imani Kaliid, to check out some of the editorials I've written on different violence-related topics in the last few months. Check out survivor stories from Pain to Power on the Mogul Network. Before I go major, no, I'm really serious though.
Yeah.
So check it out. By Monday we'll be 2 episodes in. So there's that, and just 2 last things, man. Like, I gotta reiterate, like, the importance of us supporting one another, Black men supporting women, women supporting Black men. We are the number one, like when you talk about what gives us an opportunity or a chance for the highest level of happiness and stability, it's for each other. We got to be for each other, because if you look at what's happening in the world politically, again, the convergent forces, they're talking guns rights and abortion rights or reproductive rights now. You got to know that we're on that top 10 list somewhere. You got to know they're rolling out this plan. They're disciplined, and unfortunately they're very good at it. So it's in our mutual best interest to support one another, and you got to have an imagination of how much worse things can get in this country for us. Bill Maher is onto something. Like, I don't know. I don't want to get on it.
No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, but
they have a plan, and they've had one for years. So be aware.
They have for decades. It's in our mutual best interest to get behind one another, and open door policy to everybody on this panel. If there's anything I can do to support or help you, come on your platforms. You want to come on my platform. If you know any victims or people struggling with violent trauma, I'm part of that tribe. Send them my way. If it's you, come my way when you're ready or when they're ready. And people in the chat, if there's anything I can do to help, and anybody that knows me, I'm not a dude that just says things. If you tell me you need me, I'm going to be there, or I'll tell you when I can be there. And lastly, thank you, Tamika, for putting this all together, for giving us all a platform. I definitely think we should do a part 2 and 3 at some point. And I'm going to stop there.
Yes, sir. G, my main man.
Yes, sir. First, thank you, Tamika, for offering your platform and letting us be a part of this important event. Mars, you did a great job, but I already know what you're capable of, man. So, hey, you didn't disappoint. A couple things. I'm the founder of the Floor is Yours podcast. We talk about these issues and a number of other issues, from financial just educating people on credit, home buying. We have 8 different shows. We talk about relationships, you name it. We cover a lot of topics. And what I want to do is just, again, encourage you to reach out to me on there if you want to be a part of it. And all y'all that's talking about doing a podcast, man, please do it. It is a great way to get your voices out there and to be heard and reach people, that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to reach. So, man, stay with it. It's a lot of work involved, but it's worth it. And a couple things. This show is important. And I want us to be able to build off of this. But an important piece of it, and Dr. Knowles talked about it, is making sure that we build allies. We can't do it alone.
Yes.
We need our white brothers. We need everybody building and being a part of these first tough discussions and then putting our plans into action. So, again, encouraging y'all to build allies, especially in the space of in mental health. I was just down in Vegas. I was speaking, and Vegas gave a great event. It was mental wellness for Black men, sponsored by the city of Vegas. And what bothered me, it was all the great work that was done. The one thing that bothered me is to have that many resources and that kind of support. And we had about 40 or 50 people show up. And I'm like, man, we got to do more. And I was thinking, like, what can we do? And one thing I think we have to do is be more creative in our outreach. We all can do more. And this is not a slight to anybody, but I'm just thinking about when we prepare to mobilize our people to do this great work, we have to be creative and think about the barriers that we are faced when trying to get people out into spaces like this. And, our elected officials, we got to do more. Our community leaders, we got to do more. Religious organizations, and especially our parents. And that, again, is not to say that you're doing anything wrong, but we took a great and tremendous hit from slavery and the continued fallout from it. And we're going to have to do more if we really want to see this move in a meaningful way. So again, I want to encourage you brothers to keep doing what you're doing. Let's build allies. Let's help each other. Let's continue with this momentum. And thank you all for being a part of this.
Appreciate you, G. I did not miss anybody, did I, on the panel?
No.
And of course, we had Dr. Knowles here earlier. We definitely shout out to Dr. Knowles for all his meaningful experiences and meaningful knowledge that he dropped on us. I definitely learned a lot. And one of the things he did say, and one of the things that G just said, block out other parties just because we're Black men. We have to allow them to understand what's going on, and then understand, because that's one thing we don't know, is the blind spots of what they've learned, because we've had our own trauma and our own experiences that we have no control over having to be in. So, but I'm gonna end there, and like I really want to thank Ms. Tamika for having this platform, Mogul TV Global Network. First of all, it is an up and coming streaming platform that is built to get the word out. No matter what it is, it's gonna be bigger than what it is right now. Obviously, it's for the culture right now. That's all I see is different shades of me, and I love that. Number one, so definitely check that out. Representation matters, number one, and I love that part.
Yeah.
So thank you, Ms. Tamika, for this platform. Thank you for handpicking all these wonderful men, because I don't think you missed. I don't think you missed at all, and I really do appreciate that. I also appreciate that I was able to be the El Moderator today, because I learned a lot. I learned a lot today about myself. I learned a lot about these men here. I learned a lot about Black men and where we're coming from. And that, I think that's the biggest thing. Thank you, Mr. Tamika. But for me, my name is Marcellus Carlos. As you guys can see, I had a couple family members on here. My pop, he was on here. And I think that that's support right there. That's like indirect support, and they don't even have to say anything, but indirect something that we all can do for each other and for the rest of us. Just continuing the conversation. Please start you guys' podcast. I have my podcast on Greenwood, The Floor Is Yours podcast on Mogul TV, but I also am going to have a third podcast coming out for myself for Neurospace, which is neurospace.llc on all platforms. If you want to follow me for empowerment, for motivation, for podcasts, for all these things that are very, very important to get out and reach. That's the only way we can combat these stigmas. So, fellas, once again, thank you so much. I'm going to give our guests a round of applause because thank you guys for coming in and sitting with us. Now, though my butt is asleep, my mind is awake now, and I really do appreciate you guys for that.
You should put that on T-shirts. Merch.
After 2020, right? That everybody's butt is asleep. That's what it is.
Your mind is awake. All right.
So, fellas, I'll meet you guys backstage, and then we'll chat it up and go it off. And then, guests, thank you again for joining us, and stick around because definitely all these men have podcasts. Follow them, support them, continue to go to community events that these guys and myself as well will be hosting. And they're all over the place. We got Virginia, we got New Orleans, we got North Carolina, we got Texas in here, we got in the middle states. We got people everywhere. Please reach out. Please don't hesitate to support and get over that fear of vulnerability. Appreciate you, fellas.
All right, appreciate
Catch
you
y'all on the next one.
Thank you.
We're just gonna look